I think I got it.
Do this. I'm giving one again.
Good evening. This testing. Testing. Thank you. This meeting is called to order at 6:09. As a reminder, it is the duty of each board member to conduct themselves in a professional manner, to avoid making unnecessary noise, and to refrain from private conversations. The public should be held in the same standards of conduct. This meeting is conducted in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, Parliamentary Procedure. Would everyone rise to the left? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. McDowell, would you call the roll?
Yes. Present. Marletta Steve.
Present.
Angelica McGowan. Present. Martha Momany.
Present.
Lisa Coley. Steve Mitchell. And Joseph Taylor.
Present. We have a quorum. At this time, I have a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Mark BHAS. I have support.
Support.
Supported by Trustee Seats. Questions, comments, concerns regarding tonight's agenda?
No, all of a sudden it says I'm logged into Ms. McGowan's account. I didn't have any comments on the agenda.
All right. Ms. McGowan?
Martha Momany.
Yes.
Marletta Steve.
Yes.
Joseph Taylor.
I have a question. So we were going to do the appointment of the board secretary, so I want to do that for next week. So if we can, let's work on that. So that was just at the very top. More public comments. Okay with the board? Okay. So yes.
Angelica McGowan. Yes. And Marty Gass. Yes.
At this time, we'll have public comment. The portion of the meeting during which the participation of the public is invited should be limited to 30 minutes, unless extended by a vote of the board. Participants will fill out a card at the board meetings to request to speak. Only the individual submitting the card is allowed to address the school board with respect to the maximum amount of time allotted. Time may not be yielded to other speakers. Speakers will be requested to preface their comments by an announcement of their name, address, and any group affiliation. If and when appropriate, each speaker should have an opportunity to address the school board for a maximum of 3 minutes. The public participation section of the meeting is for citizen comments, not for question and answer, discussion, or debate. The school board is not obligated to respond, comment, or vote on issues arising from other participation. So if anyone wishes to participate, please come to the podium. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, yeah, she's got one. I think you got everybody. Oh. Which person am I? Looking one.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Tijuana Penn, and I'm speaking on behalf of Mr. Carl Bowman. And the reason being is because he did suffer a stroke, so I'm sure everything is clearly communicated. I'll be the one to speak. Basically, he just wanted to present this request for a contract employment agreement to see if it would be something who I would take a look at, review, and maybe possibly for the board to see if you would be interested in what we're presenting regarding his drumline through his organization, his nonprofit organization, Bowman School of the Arts. And he has been affiliated with the Benton Harbor Area School District in the past, rendering his services for fee, and we're just interested in maybe trying to do that once again with the Benton Harbor Area Schools.
Okay. So you still have a little time left. Anything else you want to present to the board?
Well, I'm pretty much just wanting to let you all know that he offers this service pretty much during school hours or after school hours. I know in the letter that we have presented to the board, it kind of gives some type of outline as to what he's going to do, but of course there are some things that we may be able to alter to accommodate the district if necessary. So he's looking, the targeted age group he's looking for is like 5th to 8th graders. So possibly the schools we're listing, this is numbers listing of schools that we're familiar with may not be correct, but you all could just correct us on what we have wrong. But we were thinking maybe like your middle school, junior high children to participate in this program, which has been a success in the past. So if there is any more information the board would like us to present, to maybe help you all get some type of feedback as to whether or not this will be suitable for the district.
I think you can present your information to the central administration office.
Okay.
And so then they'll go from there. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public participation?
Good evening. My name is Trent Rollins. I have to welcome college. I think we need to inquiring about that. Participation rates. Schools and it wasn't available at that moment. I'm checking to see if they have to go out to the public will find out. Anything like that? I know you guys do it. Also, I had to yesterday, I was reading this considering everything. I was just reading talking about works at the Department of Education. And I was curious, I can't hear myself, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was curious to see on the board members, sorry, not very sure, if you guys can respond to me of that. Do any of the boards currently have students that go to the district? Because I was looking at there's a disconnect. I was seeing what's the disconnect from the community. Sometimes we can have people that are seniors, but don't want to apply the plan. And we feel it's other kids because they don't have children at the district or they pass the district level when they're children into the district when they're doing age. I would be curious to know the data on that if I can get that away. Also, 2 weeks ago, I brought my kids back to the Benton Harbor Charter School back to Benton Harbor area schools. And I was a little bit concerned because I was with the children, we were going to come back, and we were encouraged not to hold back. And then around the issue, we improved our consent agreement and raised the educational levels for our district. We're dealing with, let's face it, we're dealing with a generational education dysfunction. for our children. The teachers may be teaching, but our children aren't getting it, and we're passing them to the next level, passing them. And when they come to college, they have to take those classes. And I was told by one of my friends that's an educator at Countryside that my child should have been held back. And I was just, I'm trying to understand, if we're trying to raise the academic level as the consent agreement states, why are we encouraging, this was at central administration, that not hold our children back, they can go into the correct grade level, they need to be held back. I was just thinking about that. So if I can get on those three things, I would love to. You know, I've been watching this on YouTube and everything, so I was just interesting to know that data. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public participation? All right, on to GMB architecture and Harbor Area Schools options.
Around the documentation. Earlier this year, the architectural board the success include recommendations related to keeping our students safe on the drive, using state fund dollars, and a set of recommendations to renovate our existing schools, including energy and efficiency, as well as longevity, and to upgrade them for educational programming. As that second set of recommendations was developed, it became clear that the dollar amounts to renovate and upgrade our existing buildings, as well as prepare to open current and closed buildings to accommodate the expected student growth in our forecasts to get to 2,000 for the next 35 years was always significant. So that question was, what are the actions possible to increase the bill on that already only getting $1,000 to get that information. So the presentation made tonight provides a full set of costs to renovate our current buildings, improving energy efficiency as well as longevity. And also choose current goals which in addition, we looked at the renovated buildings, so we better provide for year-round schooling, which is something we want to bring to the board shortly. And finally, we looked at upgrading those existing buildings for educational programming necessary to meet the state requirements of today's teaching and learning environment. So we're going to notice that there are charts with information available to you all and support our sharing, just so we have context for how this is going to come up. So these options in the chair shows to my point we already have information that was on the document. So I won't go into it for detail, but should the board further decide to investigate this possibility, it's recommended that this information be taken to the community public discussion sessions. Again, the intent to be that question, and then B, if you feel that this is something to pursue, that would be my recommendation. And move to a public forum next and share with the public. So just wanted to kind of give you some context as to how it even came up. It just seemed like the right question to ask when we started to look at the information they presented from the assessments they had done. The costs are so high. So I'll turn it over to GMB and they can speak to their assessments and therefore the options that they pose that the board might want to consider.
Thank you. For introductions, I'm Dave Elfinar, architect with GMB, and Tom Vandegren is an architect as well. And then we have Nate Van Hukelum and Trent DeBoer, who are engineers. So we've all worked on the facility assessment.
That's the second. So GMB, I want to apologize first and foremost. We skipped an item of recognizing some of our students working this summer. So I want to do that, and I apologize.
No problem.
So if you guys can just take a seat, we'll bring those students up for recognition. I apologize.
Thank you, President Taylor. I'm so sorry, I didn't catch it. We have the CA here, and we wanted to bring some students before the board. These are the students participating in the summer program this summer. They worked in the camps. And so I thought the board might like to meet some of the students involved and just see if you all have any questions for them. And I'm going to turn things over to the CA, and we won't take much time. We'll be right back to GMP. I'm so sorry.
Good evening. We're thankful for the opportunity to be here to have you ask whatever questions you want to ask. This is about a fourth of the team that worked in the parks in our summer impact program. The first time that I'm aware of that several organizations throughout the county collaborated to put together a summer work program. Julie Earle, our 21st Century Director, was heavily involved, and Denise Peters from the Y, and Pastor Paul Campbell from Overflow Church. So these are some of our fine workers, and why don't you tell them your names, and then we'll let them ask questions.
My name is Kenisha Span. My name is Ari Price. My name is Paige Kirkland. My name is Angela Willis. My name is Julie Sabrina.
Okay, so any questions you'd like to ask them?
Mrs. Mogan?
What did you find most enjoyable about this program this summer?
Who would like to answer?
Well, I like the most in this program is bonding with the kids. Yeah.
Anyone else want to answer that? What you enjoyed most?
I enjoy making an impact on somebody else's life other than a family.
We can hear them, but just put the mic towards your mouth more. That way the whole audience can.
I enjoy making an impact on somebody other than a family member. I enjoy the learning experience and working with other people and making a bond with people I work with.
Any other questions? Did you want to answer that question?
Ms. McGowan has a question.
Is there anything that you would suggest that needed to be approved so that next year, it's a better experience?
We had someone eager to participate on that.
I would say about the trash, because every time, when kids come to eat, it'd be a lot of trash. And then the next week we come, be all trash on the ground, and then to pick it up. Then the next week we more extra trash to pick up.
Let me add to that. We cleaned, not me, I wasn't there. The workers cleaned after their shift. So we left the park cleaner than when we found it. But there are other activities that happen during the day. When we come, when the students came, there was trash all over. And then there might be an issue with garbage collection with the city. So that was one thing that happened regularly that we would like to maybe work with the city to improve. Did you want to?
I think the kids should have better lunches because they do not like the lunches. They like the cheese lunches, but that's only because of the cheese, but they don't really like the lunches. And I think we should have like a place for inside activities because when it rains, we can work, so.
And one of the items that came up from that was that we thought that it might be good to construct a pavilion on in one of the parks. Union Park doesn't have one. When it rains, they were able to huddle under the pavilion at Broadway Park. So we're in the process of trying to make that happen.
I was going to say the other thing that we ended up doing on some of the days when it rained was trying to give them extra opportunities for trainings. And so Denise, for example, came in and did CPR another day. We had someone from a credit union come in and talk to them about opening banks. And so that's something else we're looking at is other opportunities for them to get more training besides the job training that they were already doing. So.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Denise Peters from the YMCA, and I just want to say that on the last night, one of the students said that really impacted me, said that this feels really good. It feels really good to be appreciated because a lot of the parents said how much they appreciated what the kids have done. So, and then another student said that, yeah, it does feel really good. So I think that that's a win. So thank you.
Thank you.
I was just really moved by all of you. You did a phenomenal job, and you learned so much in just watching you interact with those students. It was a blessing.
During the BHAS, and I'll close with this, everyone received a medallion for participating, and then some students also received a certificate for emerging leader or most improved leader. And I was just informed today that we might have one of these workers that could be a potential employee of one of the organizations that work with us. And I won't go into any details because it's not a done deal. But our young people learned some valuable work skills, and they proved that they are hard workers and reliable workers. So I'm looking forward to being able to do this again next year.
Thank you. Great job. All right, GMB, you're back up.
Okay, just to reiterate, there are 4 options that we're bringing forward here. 3 options, A, B, and C, are on the existing facilities, and option D is a new building option. And the current buildings that we're looking at is Discovery, Hall, MLK, ACA, Green, and High School, with future growth to be Fair Plains, Northwest, and Sorter. Option A is renovations that improve the energy efficiency of the buildings, increase the longevity of the buildings, improvements in that, new finishes, that type of thing. And there is a separate document that you should have that is called option descriptions, that kind of goes through the various possibilities for the different options. So, but the option A for all those buildings, and it also includes the pool and the stadium, is $61,157,700. Then option B is the same renovations, and in addition would add air conditioning to the whole building to better serve a full year-round school condition. And that number is $70,809,960. Option C includes all the renovations that option A would have, and it would include the air conditioning that option B would have, and it also has new programming. That's educational programming that's in line with the current technologies and theories of education today. And that number is $100,661,473. And option D is a new building option, and that would be new buildings consisting of PK through 2nd grade, 3rd through 5th, 6th through 8th, 9th through 12th, administration central services building, and then it would also include a new pool and stadium for a total of $20,540. Do you have anything else to add to that?
No, it's just the numbers.
Okay.
Any questions from board members concerning options A, B, C, or D?
Do you want to comment on the 15 million? That's it.
Yeah, the other thing is that includes also taking the site sinking fund money, the 13 million, to get that number down because those site sinking fund items would be included in this work.
Ms. Seats.
Yes, thank you. There are no time frames on this document for whatever reason, but there's only like 100 million for the renovation and 133 million for this option D, the difference of 33 million. What is the time frame for all of the options? Option A, how long would this construction or reconstruction take for option A? What would the time frame for B, C, and of course D would be much longer? Is there a time frame for the renovation of these facilities? How long would it take?
Sure, sure. You want to be an estimate of that?
No.
Yeah, we didn't spend, we didn't put together a schedule, but to give you a frame, a reference to, the renovation projects, you know the scope of them a little better than I do on the rental side of it, but the construction of those are at least a year project on every one of those. But you'd probably want to be careful that you time those with the funds, because obviously, as Dr. Walker was saying, this would require a bond. And so you have to have those, some financial analysis needs to be done to know when is your money available. That's probably more of the picture. A bond might require you to, it might be most advantageous to get the money over a course of 5 years in terms of how the taxable stuff works. So that might be the driver more than the construction. Each of these buildings could probably be renovated within a year. When you start them is maybe the next step to start to look at some of that stuff. The new construction, most of those buildings are 2-year projects to design and construct.
That helps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So on option D, that's one site, high school, middle school, elementary.
Correct.
All separate buildings, or would you kind of do I think they're doing like a Y or whatever?
Yeah, there's potential for doing a Y, especially with a PK to second and third to fifth, or some arrangement like that. Yeah, could definitely combine some buildings like that.
Any other questions from the board?
So this basically is a campus on this 136 acre property.
Correct.
This is a campus.
Yes.
And none of the consideration for how much the high school and the other facilities, is there a cost analysis included and applying this to the cost of this option D? If you sold all of the facilities, if you sold all of the property, what cost that against what the total cost of like option B is, how much would option B be if you sold all of the existing facilities?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, no, there's not been a value study done on our existing facilities to see what value they would, in theory, bring that could then be applied. It would make sense that would be what it is here to select to do. If we decided to move in that direction as the facilities became obsolete and no longer necessary for utilization, we would dispose of them appropriately at fair market value, and those funds would then be applied to offset the cost of construction of new facilities. I would assume that would be what we're dealing with based on further financial analysis and recommendations from, I would assume, some financial guidance would better assess that. So.
but we already have the numbers of the value, and there hasn't been any conversation since you have this before us of the values of all the properties. We have an analysis of what everything is valued at. To put in these numbers, what is the property worth right now? How much is all our properties worth? Are we at what, 2, 3 million, 4 million?
Your question is a great question. The seats that we haven't even talked about yet, so we don't really know. We do have that one sheet that does give us values, but we've not had any discussions about what to do.
But you have real estate values and you have a total of everything is worth.
On that form that we gave you all, I think it was last year, when we started doing the real estate assessment work, so you're right, we do have that. But I can tell you, we've actually not even talked about that, because again, as I stated, this came up from an angle of, the work we were doing for the consent agreement required to do, open the window to allow us to just, either ask a question or whatever. So it's really, in the hands of the board in terms of what you all see as in the best interest of the district and for the students, but we wanted to make sure you were equipped with information. So that is a great question. We can add that up, but none of us we've not had any discussions about it, so I have not agreed. It's a great question.
Thank you.
Ms. Gass.
Along those lines, I'd also like to know what the cost savings would be. My understanding is that we have some very old buildings that require a lot of maintenance. And there are certainly issues if you're going to put consolidate the school district onto one site. There are cost savings, I would assume, in terms of transportation and that kind of thing, but also on the flip side, what does that do to the students if you're going to put them all on one site? And I think that kind of analysis also needs to be completed.
We didn't do anything like that, did we? I mean, this was so preliminary, we want to do. And so you tell us what else you want to know, and we will work to get that. So I'm hearing a cost analysis, and I'm hearing if hypothetically the board chose to dispose of all its property, what would that net value be based on what the market value is listed? Am I understanding that question right, Ms. Seats?
That is correct.
Okay.
Ms. McGowan?
I guess I need clarification. I was under the impression that the buildings, that we sold, that money would be used for the debt that we're in. So that isn't just free money out there that we can spend on buildings.
Yeah, and I didn't hear the question like that, so if I'm in there, forgive me. I just thought it was a generic question around what is our property value totally worth, is what I thought I heard the question to be.
Well, yeah, I'd like to know what the total worth is, and based on that too, when you get done helping pay down, then what is left to apply to possibly option B. I just want to know what the net worth is, period. And I do understand that the debt has to be paid. So that's a minus. So when you get done looking at, but I just want to know what the net worth is right now.
So two things I'm hearing you all would like to see. Are there other pieces of information that would be helpful for the board as you process this? And there's no timeline, no schedule. It really was in response to, it just makes sense to ask the question and bring the information to you to decide how you would like to proceed, because we do have extremely old buildings that need a lot of renovation. When we go out, I won't say if, we are going to need to open the buildings, and that's really where we're really at the road, because our buildings that are not open are in such sad condition. So.
All right, so thanks a lot, GMB. I think you guys want to, do you have anything else to add?
Nope, I think that's it. That's it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Johnson, on to food service equipment bids.
Thank you. A request for proposals or RFP has been issued for food service equipment for multiple schools. The bids are due this coming February 1. Some of this equipment will be grant funded and the rest will be funded by the food service fund. Because the bid deadline falls after the due date for board package materials, and because we'll need to allow some time to analyze the bids, a recommendation may be made to authorize the superintendent to award the bid at a not to exceed price of $75,000. Some, perhaps all, of the bids are expected to come below that amount.
How much of the 75,000 is from the food service monies versus grants?
We expect that the cost of the equipment will be approximately $20,000 that's funded by the grant, and the rest from the food service fund, probably in the neighborhood of $30,000.
Mrs. Vaughn?
Is this part of, I know when I was on the finance committee, we were told we had to spend some of the food service money that we made too much profit. Is this still part of the spending down of the extra money that was in food service?
It's that and to take advantage of the grant.
Okay.
Any other questions for food service bids? All right, monthly financial reports.
Thank you. The reports for July 2017 are included in the packet. One of the reports, the year-to-date budget report, will become more meaningful a few months into the new fiscal year that began on July 1. A copy of the utilities budget report is also included in tonight's packet. If you have any response to any questions?
Any questions? All right, utility budget report.
This is the new custom report that was prepared a couple months ago, 3 or 4 months ago now, showing the total cost for the month and for the fiscal year for utilities, including natural gas, electricity, and water and sewage. This report, like the year-to-date budget report, will become more meaningful as we get further into the fiscal year. The first month report, actually the first 2 or 3 months, reports are not as meaningful for comparative purposes as future months.
Any questions concerning the utility report?
So this report includes everything, water, sewer, electricity, everything, right?
Yes, there's a separate report for each one, and then there should be a grade report set.
So is this, can I assume that this is broken down somewhere where you might notice if a building was all of a sudden using too much gas or too much water, or that their bills were suddenly going up in that section?
For a building that is open, for buildings that are closed, we have been charging those all to a district-wide account, so it's a little harder to catch. But we have flagged a few buildings that have relatively high water costs for a closed building. Mr. Leonard is to investigate those.
Okay.
So I have a question. Since we're in business and finance, it's not about the utility budget. There was a question brought up concerning our closed facilities. And so the question was, does our taxation go down to the consumers or to the citizens, right, because of the closed buildings?
The tax rate is still the same. However, by closing facilities, we're able to reduce the operating costs for those facilities, being natural gas, electricity, and water and sewerage costs. And there are other costs that are reduced as well for these facilities that are closed. And then we repurpose those costs to other needs in the district.
Okay. So you're saying the county still charges the taxpayer pays the same amount, regardless that we got 4 schools closed, for example. They're still charged the same amount.
Actually, it's we that's the board that sets the millage rates for property taxes for open operating schools, and it's 18 mills for non-homestead and 2 for single fund. Those rates are the same as they have been for some years.
Now I understand. Any other questions for Mr. Johnson? Thank you. Mrs. Robertson, unofficial state standardized data update.
Good evening, board. So we have some results that we'd like to share with you from our MSTEP data. Two pieces, we have them separated for our 9th through 12th grade students, and then we have another piece that is for our 3rd grade students. So the first slide that we have the 9th through 12th grade SAT and MSTEP data. It says unofficial. This was created prior to the embargo status being lifted. So this is the data that we got off of our website. We have our GM Ben Harbor High School data listed in the first column for 2017, and then the second column says 2016 Ben Harbor High School data that we have. I'll preface this by saying that we are nowhere near where we need to be with our data. We have a lot of work to do. We continue to move forward with looking at our data. We have to look at it in order to know where we're going. And then we have to make adjustments as we go along to make sure that we're giving the students the support they need in order to achieve. Okay. So in order for us to make those adjustments, we have to look at what our real reality is. This is our reality. Right here is what you see. So in 2017, for the SATs, the evidence-based reading and writing piece, our students scored 8%, and the 8% is the benchmark that SAT sets. So the 8% of our students met that benchmark. For our math SAT in 2017, none of our students met the benchmark that was set. Science MSTEP for our high schoolers, 1% were proficient or above. And then for our social studies and MSTEP in 2017, 3% were proficient or above. When you compare that to 2016 for our high school students, you see that there was our students, they go down.
Got a question from Ms. Gass?
I have a two-part question. Was the benchmark the same for both years?
Yes.
And what was the benchmark?
I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I will get it to you about, the scores like 1,600 for SAT, so somewhere in the middle, just underneath the 800 benchmark. So that was set by the state. Once they did the first one, they kind of did some cut scores, they made that benchmark. So I'll get that to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And if you go to the 3rd grade, 3rd to 8th grade data. So for ELA in 2017, 6% of our students grades 3 through 8 were proficient or above proficiency. And in math, 2% of our students were proficient or above proficiency.
Any questions regarding 3rd through 8th grade? Ms. Mrs. Mommy.
We keep talking about data. I know for at least a year and a half now, we said we're going to base all our decisions on data, yet we don't seem to be receiving data. And, okay, let me say this, because we hired somebody for data, and one of my questions when we hired this person to do this stuff, I said, so when I ask for data, we can get it, and I was told yes. And I am appalled. When I saw these scores, it was like a kick in the stomach. I was literally ill. We're close to losing a generation of kids, and this cannot happen. And I wonder if we're at a point where, I know we got a lot of good programs, and a lot of them that the kids enjoy, but maybe it's time we absolutely get data and we evaluate what is working and is not working. I believe in education and arts and all these other things and all feel good stuff, but if we're not hitting hard and heavy on the academics so these kids can bring up their scores and get an education, then we have got to change. I am on a mission. You probably think I'm ranting at some point, and thank you for noticing that, because this has been tearing me apart ever since we found out from the media what our scores were. I'm very, very upset with this, and I'm done with excuses or reasons, and we're going to get it done. I'm ready to have it. I'm ready to have the results. I'm ready for us to move forward.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mrs. Robinson. Mrs. Baptiste, staff report number 1, employment of staff.
Thank you, President Taylor. So you have attached to this a employment memo for Belinda Brady, special education teacher at home. I am looking at the staff report now, employment of instructional staff. The reason for board consideration is that the board must vote to approve the employment of the following instructional staff in accordance with the revised school code and other general laws of Michigan. The facts and analysis from Belinda Brady, again, special education teacher, to be placed at home. And the recommended action is that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education votes to approve the employment of the aforementioned instructional staff.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Baptiste? Mrs. Tommy?
Yeah, I noticed this applicant is from out of state. Are they coming here as a result of a spouse or family moving here?
It is a family-related move.
Okay, so then we have more of a chance of them staying than if they just came on their own.
Correct.
Any other questions? Thank you. Dr. Walker, Central Administration. So asking for a vote of the staff report tonight, so that she can start tomorrow.
No, 1 minute after we go back.
I know. All right, so the staff report was read. May I have a motion for the approval of staff report number 1?
So moved.
Moved by Angelique McGowan. May I have support?
Support.
Supported by trustee Martha Momini. Any other questions, comments, concerns regarding staff report number 1? All right, Ms. McGowan?
Angelique McGowan, yes. Mari Gast,
Yes.
Joseph Taylor,
Yes.
Lisa Gully,
Yes.
Martha Momini,
Yes.
and Marletta Stevens.
Yes. Staff report number 1 passes. Dr. Walker, Central Administration.
I apologize. I thought of a question after the question period.
Go ahead.
The people that we're hiring now, do we have a plan in place to get them caught up on the professional development that so many of the other staff members received this summer?
So right now, it's not a written plan, but we do have our coaches in our buildings that will be helping and assisting those teachers get acclimated to some of the training, not all of it. Because it's really-
Yeah, well, there's a lot of hours there.
Yeah, there's a lot of hours. So some of the training, especially the curriculum advisement, knowing how to access the curriculum, where the materials are. We can't do the mental health piece, but going over some of those big broad things, and then we'll have to go back and backtrack.
Yeah, please do. You're gonna need support.
Okay, so school board, before you is the proposed draft contract with Riverwood Services regarding the counselor support through the safety grant that we are working toward. You all did back in August approve the RFP contract.
We can't hear, can't hear. Can y'all get a better microphone and stuff? Y'all been messing with that mic all day.
Right, I was thinking. it was-
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Microphone. Please.
Is there another one?
Is this better?
Yes, please.
Well, thank you. So I was saying that in August, the school board approved us to accept the RFP from the Riverwood Health Services to provide counselors in our school for the safety grant. What you have before you is a draft of the contract that Tim Gardner has been working with the lawyers and the company of Riverwood to ensure liability and other variables related to types of services that will be provided are met. So just wanted to share with you, there are 2 paragraphs that involve some liability detail that are still being worked out, but we hope that next week we'll be able to bring to you a final contract.
Any questions from the board regarding the Riverwood contract? All All right, Dr. Walker, registration numbers.
So I was hopeful that I could give you some real data from today, but we were just fortunately had a lot of new parents come in and register. But I can tell you as of Saturday, Brenda had entered every application that had come in, and this is a working document, so she's actually entering them tonight and tomorrow. So right now, what we have registered, 2,282 students that you can see across the grade levels. But again, we just have a slew of students, as does occur, come in to register at the central office as well as in the buildings. I'm pleased to share that because last year we saw that was an area of need, we put some processes in place. And so at ACA, at Hull, for example, there were stations where parents could go and, you know, if they needed information for their buses versus if they were registering their child, etc. That really seemed to provide organized chaos, because I don't think you can avoid just the first day. Everyone's trying to figure out where they should be, but it was so much more organized and peaceful. And Mrs. Robinson and I were in every school, and the big area that I would say we struggle with would be buses, and I'll talk to that later in my superintendent's conference.
Any questions regarding registration?
No, I was in MLK today, and they had it all set up so that, you know, the principal's like, oh, there's chaos, and I'm like, where? Because it was well supported, and lots of people around trying to help make sure everything was done correctly. So I appreciate those people that did that.
Dr. Walker's scorecard.
And this document will be attached to your weekly memo, so you'll be able to keep up with these numbers as they change. There'll be another column added that'll be enrollment, which is next to those students who were assigned, and then actual attendance. So you're gonna start to see two numbers: the students who register/enroll, which would be your column B, and then how many students are attending. And so we will attach a document and be able to follow that, because we run the data. We'll run it every day for a couple of weeks, then we'll run it every week for the rest of the year, so you'll be able to keep tabs on that. All right, so Ms. Momini asked a question about data and the person we hired, and that, what I was saying is here, this is it. But we thought it was important to share with you what we call the unofficial data, because of the problem we do have, Ms. Momini, while the data is embargoed, it's very difficult to pull this data together. I don't have an answer, I'm still trying to figure it out, but it is not an easy task. For example, the way I received the data when I came last year was not in the same format I got the data. When it was finally released, it wasn't even in the same format. So as Benton Harbor, we have our own issue with not having a data dashboard and having a tool that harvests our data. So Ms. Leveski, who you referenced, she analyzes the data, she doesn't harvest it. And we don't have a centralized data hub or a way to harvest the data, to put it into a place. And so that's the bigger issue, because if you don't get the data into a spot to then work with it, you still don't really know what you're dealing with. So just to kind of, you know, share that with you, what I'm about to go over with you now is the work from Ms. Leveski around the scorecard and the data, and it is robust, and there's a lot of information here. So I'm going to just kind of walk you all through it so you have context. And then if there are other data points that I haven't been bringing to you, I would love for you to just let me know what else you may want to know that I can share, because this is robust.
But if we're not able to get the data the way we should be getting it, this is kind of scary. Should we be making decisions based on inaccurate data?
So we're not making it on inaccurate data, Ms. Momini. So in the state, so let me share, and then I also have a presentation later that I think will connect the dots for you, because that is the data dashboard or hub. If you go back to our partnership agreement work, it's one of the buckets that we communicated is a struggle for us. And no one really picked that up to help us, and we were still working with the RISA to try to get some of that. And like I said, it can be a multitude of variables, and still learning it for myself. I saw it with my own eyes working with Ms. Robinson, the way the state presents the data. It could be, we just don't know how to look at it, and I'll own that. if that is the case, but it's very complex, and I'm used to the state providing you your data in a much more succinct way. So it's not that it's inaccurate, it's not easy to pull out of it what it is you're trying to do. So we did have to go to Miss Julie, and I'll show you where it is, for her to help us pull it out. So what you saw from Ms. Robinson is us pulling it out. That's why I call it an official. But then we did, once it was on embargo, asked her to pull it out, and that's where it's in this document. And I'll show you, okay? So on the first tab, what you have, and I've shared this with you all last year, you have, I'm gonna ask you to think of, you have state data and you have district data. And what I mean by that is these are, state data is what is that information that the state is gathering and how they use that information to assess districts across the state. So your M-STEP is an example of state data. It's the state standardized achievement test, okay? The scorecard is a district tool. These data points, these metrics that you see on the scorecard in that second column or in column B, myself and other staff, along with Dr. Teasley, the very recent team, we identified what data, what information did we want to measure off of the 2016-17 school year to guide us, back to your question, Ms. Mommy, on in what we are doing, what's happening, what do we see? So this is this tool that you're referring to, okay? So we identified what the metric or the data point would be about. The column C is the goal for the end of that year. What goal do we want to reach? Column D is the baseline, which, as you've heard me say over and over and over, there were no baselines because this regime of leaders, we have not been able to find prior year's work that I'm sure has been done at Benton Harbor that we could build on. And that's when you hear us say, we don't have the information, we're starting from scratch, we're trying to figure it out. Because when people left, they burned it, they ate it, we don't know. But it's not warehouse like it should be in most situations. That should be available for us to springboard or build upon. And we don't have that. So we had to create everything ourselves. So what you see in that column F, quarter one, the results, and then you see from, when we set our goal, quarter one, and column G, quarter two, what is the goal? And you can see the time period on line 2 of when that quarter existed. And then you can see in column H, the results. So we guesstimated, literally, we just took a guess, based on professional experiences and what we had seen. My little short time in Benton Harbor, this was done almost a year ago. We put this tool together. We guessed what we thought we should reach for each of these quarter two, quarter three, and quarter 4 goals. And then we measure our progress to those goals. Okay? So if you keep scrolling the document over to the right, you can see each of the quarters. And again, I'm not sure if Susan's scrolling over, that's one of the disadvantages. I don't know if we're looking at the same things. But if you hit the arrow key and you go over to columns J and K, and then all the way over to L, you have quarter 4 results. So Susan, if you hit the arrow down here at the bottom, go over, right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, look where you were. Mm-hmm. Go back to the area. Yeah, and scroll. Hit that button for me. Can somebody help me? It's not going anywhere for you? Oh, it's going on. Is it going on your all screen? Can you go? Yeah, it's going on Mr. President's arrow. Is it going on yours? Okay. So you can see quarter 4. Right? So quarters 2, 3, and 4 are the data that was collected at the end of each of those quarters to answer if we were hitting the targets that we set for ourselves. And I'm going to show you another tab that makes this so much easier to understand. But this is the big chart of data. So then, if you go to the next tab, so if you hit the arrow and go back over, there's a tab that says scorecard trends. If you could select that and board across the bottom, if you scroll on your tabs, there's a tab that says scorecard trends. Or you can look up here, and I might just, just to control this. Because so in column E, you can see an assessment of what we've learned about the different goals or benchmarks, because the benchmarks are over a time period. The goal is the final, how we did. So on quarter 4, for example, what Sue has up here, looking at under curriculum and instruction, that's the evaluation area. The metric was looking at our POC agenda in minutes. The goal at the end of quarter 4, we wanted 95% of our POCs to have a focus on the thoughtful classrooms. Dimensions, which is the evaluation tool, but the data we collected, we had 86%. So we did not hit that goal that we hoped to hit. We approached it, but we didn't surpass it or hit it. Making sense? I have questions so far. Just to show you how to read, because there's a lot of data here to this mommy's question. It's here. If you go to the next block, which is lines 6, 7, and 8, from those classroom walkthroughs that we did, there were specific things that we looked for over the course of the year. For example, were the teachers using the pacing guides? We wanted at the end of the school year, 80% of teachers to self-report they were using pacing guides. 77% did. So we didn't quite hit the target. We wanted 80% of classrooms to have at least 2 students when interviewed that could tell us they understood what they were supposed to be learning. 76% of the students could tell us. Close, but no cigar. The next data point, having visible targets posted, we wanted 80% of our classrooms to have targets visibly posted that told the students what you were going to be doing. And by the end of the year, 91% of our classrooms demonstrated that. So again, I can keep going, but if you scroll down, this is robust. When you get into the red, you can see for the achievement data in Ames Web, we did not come anywhere close to what we projected we would achieve in that first year. Again, if you go back to the M step, it says embargo, because again, the embargo was just lifted, so this has to be updated. And this will let people do that. But I'll show you another tab where she did pull the data in from the state website and put it in a format that we could more easily read and follow it. I'm sorry, my computer's on. So if you scroll over to the next quadrant, you can see the achievement data for the NWEA. We saw an increase on the achievement data. And this is why it's important to look at students across multiple metrics. Different tests test different things and in different ways at different times of the year. So we are seeing from NWEA some increases, and I'm going to show you another source of data around that later. But in the end, NWEA is an in-house tool. It's not the state assessment. So some might say, well, who cares? Because it's the state data that everyone sees publicly published. So any questions on how to read that tab specific to looking at the trend data? And again, I didn't go through everyone. I'll be happy to sit down with you. So this is robust. This document is robust. It's a lot of information here. This is our self-assessment to Ms. Montgomery's question of how are we doing? If you look at the next tab, 2016 metrics and goals, this is part of what was on the initial scorecard. So I won't go through that, but it just shows you each of the goals for each of the quarters, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's just kind of the initial document that we created. And again, I want to stress, keeping in mind that when we did this work back in September, October of last year, like I said, our benchmarks, our goals for each quarter were based on just best practice and what we hope to see happening for kids. And as you can see, for many of these targets, we did not meet them. Some we did. And we'll come to a better summary of that, I believe is in here. If you click on the next tab, this is the official M-STEP results that she just added in for us over the weekend when we asked her. Because we knew we had unofficial, we found out the data was unembargoed on a happenstance. We didn't, I never know, I'm not questioning the state, but where I came from, yeah, we could notify it. Just happened to find out it was all of a sudden unembargoed. So we asked for the data because we couldn't find it officially other than what we shared. So this is the official data, but it goes into much more detail. You can start to see by grade level and by test. So when you look at, we know our third grade students tested extremely well. Our eighth grade students did. Now, personally, comparatively speaking to Ms. Conley's point, none of this excites me, even if it's an improvement, because it's not okay. But this is where our children have been for a long time. And so to expect after 1 year that we're at 20% proficiency, I think after 2, we can get to that 15. I'm very comfortable in our goals of the partnership agreement. And I'll come later, do a slide with you all and show you, to your question, what are we doing? But we're talking a lot of deficiencies over a long period of time, a lot of learner behavior. Our kids are capable, they are smart and bright, but they have behaviors and structures that have not been in place conducive to a learning environment. And that's what we're also adding, along with trying to raise their cognitive ability. Your next tab, where it says additional information, you can see a look across over years, the percent of students meeting the fall and winter growth targets, and this is about the NWEA data. So again, you have the different data points, different information, and I'm gonna, in another presentation later, come back and share with you all kind of summaries of that. Make sure I haven't missed any tabs. There we go. So you have the NWA reading results, you have the NWA math results, and then here is the final, and I think one of the quickest, easiest reads, where you can see the final quarter 4 on this tab and the results for all of them on one if you keep scrolling down. And so I believe out of about, actually I never really counted them, but out of all of these benchmarks, I want to say, was it like 6? We had 6 out of about 20, I want to say maybe 7 out of about 20 of the areas that we were measuring ourselves, we were able to accomplish 6. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit later about what is the celebration, keeping in mind that there was no data. So just the fact that we have data and we can see where we are is so important. So to your question, Ms. Merman, how did we make decisions? Making decisions off the data that we did have, right? But there was no pattern, no history, all of those things that really help to really inform you. So it's not that our data is inaccurate, it's just never been harvested or stored anywhere, and we're building people's capacity to understand how to collect data, how to measure their work, how to monitor their work, and they're still learning that process. That's why the PD, that's why the many things that we did do this summer to build our teachers' capacity to be even more successful in what they're doing for children in the classroom. So this is the scorecard, and this is the data that has been and is being used to drive our decisions and inform our work. And I'll show it in a different way later. So what I wanted to do, though, if you look at this next link, this is a summary of the NWEA data. And this makes it a little bit easier for you to see an overall picture of where Benson Harbor is. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. So where you see the green on NWEA, those are all the areas where we show improvement. And the measuring tool on this set of data is when the students started the school year in 2015 and ended that year in 2016, they took the NWEA. And NWEA identifies a percentage or a target or a benchmark, a goal of for students at each of these grade levels, what's the amount of growth that they should experience in that school year. So this first column, second column, which is column B, tells you about the students in 2nd through 11th grade in the 2015-16 school year. So then the next column, C, tells you about those same students in their next grade level. So only if that student was in the district for the first year of 15-16 to the second year is their data captured here. And what you see is in 3rd and 4th grade, the rate of growth did not go up. But in 5th grade, 8th and 9th, 10th grade, for math, we had growth. And you all know, as well as I do, the problems we have with no math teachers. So when you ask the question, is there a magic bullet between the work that we have been doing with Carnegie? So the work that you all had, that we asked you to approve last year, I would say comfortably that although we are not there yet, we have been able to indent or imprint upon the math experience of students because it really could easily have been all over it. But we brought in Carnegie Math because we know we don't have math teachers. So is there a direct correlation? Well, no, there isn't. But we know we don't have math teachers, especially in those upper grades, and yet the children are showing signs that they're progressing. In Carnegie only work with our middle and high school students. They do not go to elementary. If you look at the next columns, E and F, you're looking at reading. And at the 2nd grade level, there was no change in the percentage of students who grew. And in 4th grade, there was no growth. But in all the other grade levels, we do show that our students last year did improve in their NWEA proficiency, meeting the growth target. They're still not where they need to be because they're that far behind. But we do see an increased rate of growth from the prior year. So again, the assumption, the question to be raised is, can we directly correlate which programs may or may not have caused these bumps? No, we can't do a direct correlation. But we can say that what we are doing is evidencing there is growth in the students compared to the year before.
Do we have a way to, take kids that are in 21st century and compare their scores to other kids? Kids that are going to Boys and Girls Club, comparing them to the other kids. So we get a sense, because maybe someone's doing a wonderful job and we need to do the same thing as them.
We are working toward that, but again, it's not that we don't have a data hub, to your point. That's what should be the situation, but it's not. So we have to create those opportunities and those structures that are not in place. So we're trying to build our data hub, our data, I call it a dashboard, ourselves, because there's nothing there to work with. So ideally, yes, we should be able to extract the data in an ideal world, identify the 25 kids that are coded in the system who went to program M. Program M is Boys and Girls Club, and then we pull all the program M kids, and then we can look at all their achievement data. That's in the ideal world, and I've worked to move districts to a data board of that nature. It's not here. So no, we can't pull the data like that, but should we be able to? Yes, I would love that. So we're working toward that. These are the types of the hurdles and obstacles that I've been sharing with you all that we face. It doesn't mean the data that we have is incorrect. It's no easy way to get at that data. That's where this rescue comes in, and we've only highlighted or identified certain data points to be pulled in this work because there was nothing. So it starts somewhere. If you click on the next link, and I think, I just messed something up. Hold on, I'm sorry, John. All right, where it says walkthrough data, if you remember on the scorecard, I spoke to some of those data points on the scorecard that had to do with when we walked through and we collected information. I think this, to your question, Ms. Mahoney, is where you really can start to see what are we doing and what does the data tell us about what we're doing. So the first one is about pacing guides. And I mentioned to you all that by the end of the school year, we had 77% of our teachers using the pacing guide. But look what we started the year off at. And of course, I'm on somebody else's computer, I cannot see this. We started off way lower. And so what this data tells us is that the work that we are doing with the teachers is improving across all of these areas, because the blue represents the data we collected after the first quarter with the initiatives, the professional development, those things that we put in place, and the green tells you what we learned by the end of the school year or the fourth quarter. So this is what was happening in the classroom. The next one, students' awareness and learning targets. When we first went into the classrooms, 40%, 46% of the students could kind of tell you what was going on. By the end of the school year, 76% of the kids could tell us what was going on. That is significant. So somewhere in here, we have to find the positives. We have to be able to let our students and our staff know we can do this. But we have to recreate those structures that best practice tells us are what equal achievement. They're just not there, but they're getting there. And this evidence is that. Posted learning targets. When the school year started, 74% of teachers were posting their targets. By the end of the school year, we had 91%. Posting student data. When the school year started, 0% student data was posted. We know that's the best practice. For students to see evidence of what they're learning and how they're performing. By the end of the school year, 67%. Now, when we set these benchmarks, we had higher goals than this, and we didn't meet them. But it's important, as in Dr. Teasley's words herself, quote unquote, you can't ignore the change. Remember, for a lot of these data points, there was nothing there before this last school year. This is progress, and the state sees that. That's what she said, did she not? Okay, so she recognizes that although we may not have hit all of our targets that we proposed to hit, this is significant in terms of the change and what's happening in the classrooms in one school year. Hence the small bumps on the instep. They're very small, but they are some progress. If you look at the next one, the rules and ROARs being presented, look at the student engagement. When the year started, 44% of the students were paying attention when we went to the classroom. That's less than half the kids in the classroom paying any attention to what was going on. By the end of the school year, we have 89% of our kids paying attention. That's a huge start. But look at the growth over each of the quarters. So how can you achieve if you're not even paying attention? So these are hurdles, these are expectations that have to be inbred in the staff as well as in the students. And then the last one, just a positive learning environment. So part of the work the leadership team is doing as I'm speaking to you is we're building our scorecard, and now we have Ms. Julie online. Now, when we started this work, we didn't know her, she didn't know us. And you'll see I'm gonna actually renew her contract because she puts all this data together for us. Back to your question again, what is she doing? All of those things in that scorecard, all this information, and if you go through each of those tabs and you scroll down, you'll see this chart, you'll see this information in there. She's assimilating all of this for us to help us understand what is happening in mental health so that we can continue to respond to what best practice says our children need to experience. Such that, too big here. This next piece that I'd like to show you is to say, well, so what does all of this mean and how does it all connect? So one of the things, and I'm going to stand and walk, I'm sorry, I'll just do better. So can you just hit this? Okay. So this first slide identifies for you some really important things about this, because it's important to understand why is the district struggling. It is so easy to lose sight of that. All Benton Harbor's changed, yes we have, but we have to stay grounded. We have to first off, and number one, accept responsibility for things that I'm told were variables. I was not here, but I believe them. And so you've got things like revolving leadership, slow to react as a district, in the district, I can't speak to the layers, inconsistent focus, aging facilities, grounds, grant funds not maximized, et cetera. I'm sure there are others. These are just some quick looks. And we need to own that as a district, as a current leadership team. This is the reality, okay? Legislative changes. Let's talk about the impact of the legislative changes. It had nothing to do with what was happening inside of Benton Harbor. Just the fact that school of choice was an option, we know was an impact on our district, because we know we lost 3,000 students over the last 10 years. The data shows that. And that's $20 million annual lost to Benton Harbor. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of opportunity lost. And if the foresight, the time, I can't judge it, wasn't there to respond to that decline in enrollment, you end up with class sizes too large. You end up with teachers who have a terrible schedule, who are if you go to number 3, the 523rd rank in the state for pay. You end up with teachers who don't have plan time during the day, but a 30-minute lunch break. You end up with not enough supervision. I could go on and on. So that deficit of dollars has had a significant impact on how Benton Harbor has gotten where it is. And then let's just talk about number 4. A host of variables that have happened, not just in Benton Harbor, but in our nation, that impact where our world is today. So when you throw all that into the same pot, as a district, we have pretty much every variable that could have in Benton Harbor. Hence why we're in this position. So to this mommy's point again, so what have we been doing? Well, if you all remember, you hopefully remember seeing this visual. And what I find extremely comforting is every time I have an opportunity to share this information, I'm not creating anything new. We are literally building on where we started last year. We started the intervention centers with the interventionists. I talked about the classroom walkthroughs. We started working with our staff on positive behavior, which is misspelled, sorry about that, intervention support, professional learning communities. Sometimes when you switch computers, it projects weird, so some of these are off, and I'm sorry. The evaluation tools for the staff, the thoughtful classroom, and for the district leadership, school advance. Last year was the first year people got evaluated across the board. In 2016, where does that happen? I'm not mad, I'm not judging. We just can't let that continue. So during the year, using that scorecard, back to Ms. Mominy's point, and assessing what data points we did stop together, we knew if we stayed on the path we were on, it was going to be even worse. Or we might digress. So we added some things during the year. The purple, or what we call it fuchsia, the embedded professional development with the teaching staff, monthly professional development sessions, the PD-driven PLCs and the database sessions, and fidelity to curriculum, getting the instructional coaches repurposed, ensuring that teachers actually had teaching materials. They didn't have that. We adopted curriculum and didn't buy the materials. So those variables were addressed in the 2016 school year for staff and are continuing to be addressed. The additional professional development that was referenced, very robust PD this summer. As well as student supports, the assisted study program, intensive study program, those spaces we created to try to provide support to students, to try to minimize suspensions, not having a clue that the depth of the students who were coming to school were bringing a lot of baggage with them and or a lot of habits that were not about being in a learning environment. So trying to work through undoing that and reteaching students those expectations around learning, lunch retentions, the partnerships that we're starting to build and that we built in this past school year. The trauma and mental health impacts, counselors, social workers, as you know, we've just now getting to the point where we're gonna get counselors in our schools. We've been trying to do that since I came. But it's just not been an easy process to get to, but we're getting there. So then one would ask the question, so what happened? Why haven't we made more progress if we've got all those things going? Well, again, I just shared in that first slide what had been. But let's just talk about last year. What did we encounter just in 1 year? The SRO. That was a huge distraction and a huge disruption to our community. We know that. It freaked the parents out, it freaked the staff out, everybody was in a flurry. We were on a roll, all attention was shut down. I shifted all my work and never went back to the work I started. I spent the rest of my school year, from February up until today, really, but it's getting better, on partnership work. Good stuff. But tell me what performing district is out there with their superintendent having to do that work. I'm just keeping it real. So those distractions shift the focus. Budget deficits, poor teacher salaries, the teachers frustrated, the morale of the teachers when I came, wow. And many of you know that, because some of you have been working and talking to them. The morale of the teachers today, wow. You haven't? Please, go talk to them. It's a different group of people. They feel it. I can share with you the email strand from home, where you would think they would just be totally over Benton Harbor. They are ecstatic. I'm looking at their email strand. We love our school. This is just last week. The whole staff in our convocation got up and sang. Did they not, Mr. Bishop? He was there, and the whole staff. Right? So the morale has shifted. That's important because their demeanor and attitude about their work impacts what they deliver to the students. And we're not, we have a long ways to go, as Robinson said. The restructuring of the grade bands, let's not forget that. That was a huge undertaking that did not have any plans that came with it when I came. It was gonna happen. But that whole summer, trying to make that happen, moving teachers around, having to lay people off, that was unbelievable and traumatic for staff, for this community, stressful, etc. So again, you saw this data from Ms. Robinson, that there was definitely, we can't deny it, we're not trying to, I'll stand behind it, saw a shift in the decline in our data. Granted, another change, it's not really comparing apple to an apple, because we acquired, an additional whole program of school, but the bottom line is still the same, decline. So, and then again, Ms. Robinson shared this data. Some people may say, hey, the yellow means that we improve. So in the 3-8 realm, other than in science, we did improve. But I don't know about you all, but that's not good enough for these children to me. But if you just want to celebrate what we did improve upon, there you have it. We did improve, but it's not significant to me. So again, what can we celebrate? What has gone well? So click on the celebrate word, and it's going to just take you back to these data points. Did you click on that word? No, you're going, you okay. Yeah. So what can we celebrate? The fact that we have a scorecard. The fact that we have a place that we are looking at common data is a celebration. The fact that our NWA data says we did make some gains. I talked about that. The fact that our walkthroughs and our scorecard says that we are and did it over the course of this year, improve in our instructional practices, those things that impact students and learning. We have to celebrate. We mustn't lose sight of what we're doing well. And that's why it's important that we all stay committed to the cause. We will cross the finish line. We're going to surpass expectations, I don't know. But we can't be despair, and we can't focus on everything that isn't happening without balancing that, and instead recognizing what is improved. I won't go into this, but I hope you clicked on that link. And if you didn't, please do. It's a video Very well done. It's done by our CTE teacher, along with Ms. Baptist and the CA who was here. And it's a recruitment video that we plan to use moving forward to recruit staff to come to Benton Harbor. Very well done. It'll be on our website. So what is our focus for this coming year? It's the same as it was last year. We have to stay the course. What is that, Dr. Walker? It's the same 3 goals: positive learning environment, curriculum that's aligned and supports improving of achievement, and leadership capacity. And it'll be our goal for the next year, so through 2020. Go ahead, Sue. Again, I won't go through all of this, so what progress have we made? I showed you some data. These are less data-driven, but you're going to see evidence of these things. Some of you have seen the binder that we're putting together in the partnership work. You'll see it when we're collecting the tangible evidence. All this stuff is happening. Now, to back to Ms. Mommy raises an excellent question. What's the correlation between some of these things and outcomes? And so part of the work is trying to get to this data dashboard that will help us better harvest information along the programming that we're doing. But we can't not do the program. We have to change things. So these are ways we're working to change things. So that's around the student well-being and safety. Go ahead, Sue. And then in the partnership agreement, these are all the goals specific to improving achievement across the schools. And although there are 3 schools identified in the partnership agreement, we're treating it as if these goals are the same for all 5 schools. Go ahead, Sue. I won't go through this. Well, I have to, because you need to understand. Go ahead, Sue, real fast, because they're all linked. This is all what we put together for this coming school year. Last year, we started the year as far as interventions with just the interventions, and that was it. And boy, was that not enough. Plus, it took them too long to get trained. But this year, we're starting the school year with a host of other structures, and I will tell you all, this was the vision I had when I came, and I got laughed at. And I got said, there is no way we can afford that, and we couldn't. But through the partnership and the relationships that have been built, we actually are going to be in a position where we're going to have a team of people that can assess students, look at their behaviors, and help us discern earlier how they need support. Versus we were just floundering last year with many children, and we didn't understand their behaviors and how to support them across the district, let alone leadership issues, etc., that we struggle with. We keep going. Our second goal around instruction, go ahead. And you can see some of the things that we have in place for this year. We have new curriculum in social studies and science. Last year, curriculum that we got in math and in English. We have more special classes, and I agree, Ms. Mommy, the kids need to be able to read and write, but we also have to make sure they want to come. We won't have any kids if they don't have any things to help them feel good about their day and to explore the arts. So you got to find that balance of how do you ensure there's good, solid instruction happening when they are in math class and in science class, but also give them some other creative outs. So using those elective courses, and especially at the K2 level, using PE and things like that to really emphasize reading and cognitive thinking, trying to intertwine the two, so they still get that movement and that creative expression, but at the same time, have some academic focus as well, trying to find that balance. The partnerships, revamping credit recovery. We saw the impact of the change, and we audited the grades again to make sure they were viable and relevant and valid, and they were. We're going to have an initiative this school year on Reading for Me across the district in all the areas of content, whether you're elective or you're a core classroom teacher. Extending the kindergarten program, etc. So different things. I'll go back to. I want to click and just show you. Click on the revised spacing guide for me. And this is just one example of one grade level. This is 5th grade of the work that was done this summer. So you'll scroll down, you're going to see yellow highlights. And again, boards, you can explore this more freely. But this is the assessment that the teachers will be giving, and you can see dates and time frames. So this is an enhanced pacing guide that the teachers created. That's that shared leadership that we know from research makes a difference. When people feel like they're being told to do something, it's different than when people are participating in the collaboration around what needs to happen. So involving the teachers in their professional knowledge and expertise, empowering them to take ownership in how they are helping kids learn. These are the things that we're looking to make the difference going into this next year, and these are the things that when we create our scorecard, we'll be monitoring and measuring and collecting data on. Go ahead, Steve. Keep going. Again, the goals identified in the partnership agreement related to instructional improvement. We all know that lofty 30% that we were not sure we should do. I still stand behind it. I'd rather have a high goal and I reach it than a really low goal and nobody understands urgency. This is urgent. And we get that within the district. We get it. This is urgent. But kids deserve to be performing at 30%. As soon as we can get there. Keep going. And then the last goal is leadership capacity. And you can see some of the things that we're progressing through to try to make leadership capacity improve so that we can improve the instructional experiences and school experiences of kids to increase the students' achievability, their ability to go out into the world and really participate. And these are some of the things that are happening to support that. And then again, showing you the goals that are in the partnership agreement that we've aligned these things to. Like, for example, 100% of the teachers will score effective on the thoughtful classroom work. So we spent time today looking at what exactly do we need to do to help make sure that we can get teachers to 100% effective. And we're creating these data points that we'll be measuring as I'm standing for. Hold ourselves accountable. This I share with the staff. These are non-negotiable. These are things that we have to do. And so everyone that's blue, if you click on it, I won't have to do that. You can go in and look at the information behind it. So again, that urgency, that target, which is the partnership agreement initiatives. Ensure fidelity to curriculum. So those pacing guides and the assessments. Being accountable as a district. So not only do we now have a scorecard for ourselves that we're going to go have going into this year, but we're going to trickle that all the way down to the principal to the teacher. Everybody's collecting data of themselves. Everybody's collecting measurables to see, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? How do I know? And if I'm not, what am I going to do to fix it? Where's my help coming from? Because we all have to be accountable to move the needle for children. So these are non-negotiables that must happen in this next school year. There'll be a huge part. Can you click on the one that says accountability metrics right there? So this, seriously. Okay, well, board, hopefully you can get to it better than Sue did, but if not, let me know. This scorecard is the one we're building for this next school year. It is robust. It makes the other one look like a piece of cheese compared to a steak. Because as we're building in our work, we're building in our need to understand if what we're doing is working. So again, a lot of information, but really important for the board to understand, how we're taking what we're doing, and we're not just randomly doing things. It's all focused. We're building one against the colorful slide with the 3 blocks. The intent is to definitely get to that 30%. It is urgent. It is non-negotiable. It must happen. And we're going to give everything we have to try to make that happen for kids. They deserve it. And they are capable. They are smart. So a lot of information. What questions are burning? Anything that's sticking out, pressing?
And then Ms. Seeks.
Okay, I'll do one, and then you do one, and then you can come back to me again. I got a long list. Okay, the pacing guys, is that just for math and ELA?
Yes.
The new text that we got for science and social studies, do they have a recommended pacing
They
guide?
have, yes ma'am. So they have a recommended pacing guide for teachers, and what the teachers are gonna do is take notes, basically keep it in a journal of what we're working. And so then next year, during summer, they'll then revise those pacing guides.
Take your turn.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Seeks.
Question, is there any reason in your scorecard that absenteeism wasn't included?
It's
And
there.
also,
It's
it's probably it'll work together. Absenteeism and your dropout rate is not included in the scorecard. And also, you talked about open enrollment in other schools. So why isn't the transfer rate of the district included in your scorecard?
Thank you, great question. So the attendance rate is there. It's in like second to the last line, I want to say in the seats. It has a student attendance rate and a target, and then the staff attendance rate. I don't really want to no reason why we did not include the dropout rate other than, I don't know that we have done anything specifically to target it. We tried to include data points when we know we put initiatives in place to target those things specifically. It could have been in there as a tracking data source, but the data, I believe, is available on the state website. Again, I haven't studied it. of what our dropout rate is. So we're not collecting data just to collect data, we're really trying to collect data specific to those areas where we are trying to move the needle around achievement, or in this case, your culture climate. As far as the last data point,
The transfer.
the transfer. So that is a data point that I do hope I'll be able to share because going into this school year. Because you have to collect the right information during the year in order to have the data, and you have to pull that information out of the paperwork the parents fill out on their form that they're coming and where they're from. You have to type that information into the system to pull it out. None of that stuff was happening. It was basic stuff going in, address, phone number, So to go back through a bunch of papers, it could have been done, no manpower. So I'm like you, I'm curious as well. I wanted to not only look at the transfer rate, I want to look at the transfer rate from where and what time frame. So I've had conversations with the team that works with us on our student information system, so we can harvest that data by, going into the school year.
Mrs. Mommy?
Okay, some of our goals, we're showing that students are gonna have a growth of, say, 1.5 years per year. Where is that information? Where is that data?
That's in the partnership agreement. So we have not measured those yet. Those were just set back in May when we wrote the partnership agreement. So a part of the scorecard that we're building that I said is robust, that's why, because now we have to start collecting the data on those points.
And NWA will show that?
For the role on NWA, if that's a target, yes. We'll be able to harvest that data from NWA, yes.
Okay, and you talked about starting reading for meaning. What is this? What is this gonna look like?
So it is a part of one of our comprehension reading strategies. So it actually started this summer with our principals getting trained on what is it? What does it look like? And it's really using anchor charts, it's using questioning techniques, it's using all those techniques in the classroom to help students understand what reading is and some of the things that they're reading. And so we started our leaders getting trained on how to do that. They actually did a presentation to their staff this past week at their staff meetings, and that is one of the things that they're going to be measuring in the classrooms as they go in and doing their walkthrough. So we're kind of focusing on one portion for our principals, but overall we are still focusing on reading as a whole. So really getting them strong and strengthening that skill area for our students. And then I'll be able to help support their teachers as well.
And then you mentioned it, restorative justice, it's the law. Restorative justice, it's the law. Don't we have a choice in that? Isn't that a decision of the board?
So restorative practices, and that was a typing error, I really should say restorative practices is now a law that we have to go through a process of questions for every discipline's expulsion, but I'm requiring our administrators to do it for every discipline incident because it's just good best practice questions. And in that process of using restorative practices, it does ensure that before students are suspended out of school, proper interventions and supports have occurred.
Okay, I just thought I remembered when we went through the revisions of all the policies, one of them was a choice and whether we wanted to include that in the policies, and I didn't know what, I guess I didn't understand what was choice and what was not.
So restorative practices and checking is not a choice, but there may have been some options on
It's
how
a
to
restorative
do it.
justice or something.
Yeah, or how you do it. So like we created a template with the help of Trini. I shouldn't even say they created or gave us, provided us a template based on the law. And the principals now have the questions that really need to be asked. And so I'm imagining that the policy, I don't remember either of the seats. I mean, it's probably, the policy may have given some options around how and what we collect from the principals as a board to evidence what's been done. But the practice itself has the law, it has to.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Dr. Walker, the renewing of the contract with HIPPO.
So, yes, Hypothesis is the company with Ms. Valesky, who that whole robust scorecard and all the data. Again, she's not responsible for getting the data into the systems. When we find a system, we share it with her and then she helps us pull the data out. And I think going into this next year, if you look at her contract, it's less than last year. It was a $70,000 contract. This year she submitted, I think, for 57, and she spoke, if you read the letter, into the foundational things that were laid last year. So she didn't feel the cost needed to be the same. So I am asking the board next week to approve us to continue contracting with her because she will help us build the scorecard from scratch. This year going in, she's already just on her own, she proposed some ideas, which was great. She also is just really, really brilliant about thinking about helping us determine ways to measure what we are monitoring. So we were trying to improve in the area of autonomy. To your question, it's a great question. I keep stressing it, but it's just a great question. And it needs to continue to be presented. Where's the data that assesses what we're doing? And so this is what we're building. It's not from lack of wanting to, it's just that we have to do it. And it just takes time.
Any other questions? Consent items, Dr. Walker?
Yes.
Golf outing?
Thank you. Just wanted to share with the board some of the donations that have come into Benton Harbor. I know that some of you may or may not know that through two events, through Whirlpool, the district received a total of $183,000. They don't want that. I keep it on down low. I keep it on down low. I want to respect that, but the board, my policy, I need to make you aware that going into the foundation was, and according to Ms. Downey, Ms. Lisa Cripps Downey, that's the most she's ever seen coming to Benton Harbor. So again, haven't gotten a dime. We ask the partners for money from the bigger picture or from the state. No one is giving money. These people that support these events have really continued to make their presence known. We're very grateful for that support, and we have some great plans moving into this next year to start using those funds.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you. Bank account establishment for the new sinking fund. Next Tuesday night, a recommendation will be made to create a new 2017 sinking fund bank account. So these funds can be properly segregated from the 2007 sinking fund. And while we're on the topic of banking, next week a recommendation will also be made to update the list of authorized bank account signers. And finally, sinking fund project prioritization plans. With the voters' approval of 2017 sinking fund, the district will temporarily have two sinking funds, the 2007 sinking fund and the 2017 sinking fund. The facility assessment project that was recently completed by GMB staff identified a list of facility needs at each school. There are plans this fall to develop a prioritized spending plan for the balance of the 2007 sinking fund.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mrs. Robinson, Curriculum and Instruction.
And I just have a few updates as well. Just kind of briefly talked about our summer training with our principals and our teachers. That's all that's there. And I know we talked about it a little bit throughout the summer. Also, just welcoming aboard our new curriculum and instruction director, Mr. Skyden, who started with us on the 1st of September. And then talked about our materials. We have our core content materials for science and social study. They've been distributed, and sometimes when you have an order that large, some things don't show up. So we have a lot of some of our materials that have not come in. So we are working with the company on getting those things done. And then our math and ELA materials have been ordered and they are on their way. And then I just wanted to answer Mrs. Gass' question about the benchmarks. So we'll have this included in the memo. The benchmark for SAT evidence reading and writing is 480. And then the one for math is 530.
Thank you.
Any questions? Professional development plan?
Okay, I did want to share with you our plan for this year for PE. There's a bunch of dates listed there. We have connected them to our district improvement plan goals. So each portion is connected to one of those goals. And then also I've connected them to our evaluation tools for both the principals and for the teachers. So you'll see something that says TC, thoughtful classroom, or SA school advance, which is for the principals. And as we go through these trainings, we are attaching the agendas to them so that we can always go back to them and they'll always be there. We'll have some notes there for people to refer back to what we are doing with our teachers and staff.
Thank you. Any questions? Mrs. Momedy?
Okay, in October, you've got Anthony Muhammad coming in for principals and district instructional team. Then it's also gonna, I see that from 8 to 12, he's with the principals, and then from 1:15 to 4, he's with everybody else. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes.
So everyone will benefit from him being here.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then, last spring, we brought someone in because we were introduced, actually when we were working on the partnership agreement, to ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences, and you brought in a lady that talked to staff and parents and everything. And one of the things that came out of that was everyone was enlightened about what adverse child experiences were, but I myself and several teachers said, okay, where's the strategies? In this massive professional development plan, are we doing anything where we're teaching the strategies that were mentioned in these presentations?
So one of the things, and that's why we thank you were there when we worked last week with Lakeside and Lakeland and Wood, single terms, et cetera, is about awareness and to understand the fine line between being aware and recognizing when students need support and also knowing our place. And that it's really not for us to be able to know how to address those needs. So going back to my presentation, when I talked to you about the tiered systems of support, that's the function of that. So the teacher ideally recognizes if the child has adverse childhood experiences or if the child shows signs of maybe some mental stress and health issues. So that's awareness. Then the next layer, that tier, is for the teacher to then bring that student to what's called a student support team, which I'm sure you've heard of those, which we are now re-implementing going into this year, which the district didn't have either. And in the student support team process, you have people around the table who do have those experiences, who can then either make suggestions to the teacher and some things he or she could try, because that's not our bucket, is how to deal with behavior. We're educators. But that if, when that teacher shares or the data shows the student's needs are more significant, then that's where now you've got all these other tiers of support through Lakeland and through Riverwood. They have a lot of programs and services for the families and for the student and for the teachers that they can participate in. So it's trying to take some of that off the teacher's plate to become the expert in an area that we didn't go to school for, but get the student to the right supports. So the intent behind the ACEs work and the intent behind the mental health work is about awareness and helping our teachers recognize when students bring these things with them into the classroom so they can seek the right help. But what was missing last year was we didn't have anywhere for them to go with that. If they were to recognize it, they were just kind of floundering on here. But now we have the student support team, we have counselors, we have social work interns from Andrews that are here in our building, etc. So we got some supports now so that the teacher doesn't have to carry that burden of what to do. And they have to carry that.
But the lady that came in talked about this, and one of the main points was as a result of the childhood experiences, that a lot of the students were deficit in their executive functioning skills. And then I even bought a book that she recommended, and it has nothing to do with the mental health first aid. This gives strategies where the teachers can use on a daily basis that is not worried about the mental health, but is teaching these students to hone their skills in executive functioning and making good decisions. And that's what I'm looking for is, are we getting any of those? Or can we take some ideas out of a book and give it once a week in a memo or something? Here's an idea you might want to try. Because teachers are crying for it. I mean, they understand now what the process is, and if someone needs more help, where to go and what to do. But the strategies to help the children change their choices in the classroom is one that they're crying for that.
So the way we're trying to address that is through PBIS, the Positive Behavior Intervention System, which gets at helping them, and that they will have more training on. We have a young lady coming named Susan Isaacs, And so if you look through here, that's what she does. So that's where they're gonna get strategies on how to best execute PBIS, again, if you know PBIS structure, you've got the universals in the school that ensure the students have an awareness of what they should be doing and recognizing those students who are. Again, I'm just gonna raise the question back that I'm not opposed at all to them getting the book. I'm not opposed at all to building their capacity on how to respond, but I really am saying that when you start dividing up the teacher's time and what they're doing, and the amount of need for a lot of our students, I'm raising the question, and from what I've seen, I'm not pushing for our teachers to become the experts in that area. I want them to be aware. I want them to recognize it. I want to see them take it to the student support team. That's where those strategies and some suggestions will come in the moment when they need them. Because again, if you inundate them with so much information, I don't know about you, but it goes into a pile in the corner, and you don't even remember when you're in your crisis what you've been told. So it's better in your crisis to go to a team that can then say, here are some strategies, here are some interventions, here are some things you can try. But tell me, but if that doesn't work, here's what you do next. So teachers can focus on academics. So I'm just trying to get us to a shift. I think this is my soapbox. Society has put a huge burden on teachers that we shouldn't bear. There's some basic expectations around behaviors, that's PBIS. But when students fall outside of that, there really need to be structures in place to support the teachers and how to respond, and not expect the teachers to become experts in behaviors. That's not what our training is. That's just my soapbox. So I want them to understand what it looks like, how it manifests, and their responsibility to be responsive, and so that, love kids past things they may do, choices they may make. If I came and I'm yelling and screaming, don't get mad at me and kick me out. Trying to find out why am I yelling and screaming. Have that conversation. That's just relationship building. That's not a strategy, that's relationship. That should come with the work. But if in building that relationship, I'm still yelling and screaming, because I have some other things going, as a teacher, I need support with that. I shouldn't be the sole person responsible for trying to change Shelby's governance. And that's the difference to me, and that's where that student support team comes in. So that's what we're working toward. But the PBIS piece is embedded in here, and that does help them get their foundational structures in place. That is expected of them to do as a teacher, that they should be doing as a teacher. Those norms and expectations to help kids acclimate to society. We want to build those skills of the teachers with that higher level of expertise. When you start talking about executive functioning, there's a lot going on with Tommy, where he cannot function in that capacity. And I don't know if we should ask teachers to know how to fix that. That's just my opinion. They should know how to fix when they can't read and when they can't write. We have a lot of kids like that. I need their attention focused on. This is my soapbox. If you want to add to it.
I think in most of our sessions that we went to, they connected it to, if you use, CPR. So you get the person to a point where you just can stabilize them and get them the help that they need at that point. So we do that in our classrooms with what we were trained to do or became aware through that training. So in addition to that, there were some practical things that you can get them to do to be stable. So like putting some lotion, special lotion on their hands to make help them to calm down. Having a special place in your classroom that is kind of dark with pillows and it's kind of a soothing place. So those are little strategies that you can do that are very, very practical in the classroom to get them to the point where you can calm them down and then give them the help that they need. So those are the strategies that we offer within our session. We kind of listed all of those out and people wrote them down, and those are the things that we can harness to help our
And that's what, and my session did not have those. So, and that's what I'm talking about, giving them those little hints that will help calm the situation.
Well, I'm sure that we look to build those in for school in case they get into.
We can add it to the memo.
Any other questions? HR update, Ms. Mathis?
Okay, so you'll see my list of current openings there by building. At MLK, high school, Dream, our special education openings, and instructional coach. My note there for you is that we currently have 20 long-term subs filling vacancies in the district. So my openings list was a lot more robust than previous times and is smaller now due to some new hires, but also the use of long-term subs. And you also see the current resignations that we have. And next week, I will present to you their names to accept their resignations.
Any questions?
I wouldn't mind if, as we're in this partnership agreement and we're having conversations with the state, that we bring up the conversation. We have certain teachers that there are exemptions because they're hard to get the teachers. But we need to start thinking in the state of Michigan about the urban districts, the failing schools, and maybe allowing all teachers in urban districts who have retired to be able to come back without penalizing their retirement. Because, I mean, we've lost a lot of good teachers that work well with our kids. And if we could convince the state to do that in urban districts, it would help us, it would help Detroit, Flint. There's a lot of places that where some of the really good teachers could come back and not lose their retirement. So start talking to people at the state, start talking to legislators. This is something that would benefit everybody, because we don't want to lose a generation of kids with no education, and because then that affects the future of all of us.
And I sent you all an article, I think yesterday.
Yeah, and it's, yeah, I know it's not just us, but.
Yeah, because they're trying to find creative ways to find staff, because you're dead on.
But why would you want to go into teaching anymore?
Exactly. Gotta change.
Make it so much fun, and they change your retirement and threaten to take your benefits.
I just wanted to jump on that too, is, yeah, why, you know, the legislators, they need to realize, because they have been attacking teachers' benefits. And, you know, why? Why would you want to teach them?
Any other questions? So at this time, we have, if I can pull it up. We have a resolution. And so Mrs. Gully's, are you Mrs. Gully's attorney, Ms. Gully's attorney?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so we're at the stage for the complaint that was issued August 21st.
Can we get a microphone?
I'm attorney Martin Kirk from 2762 Niles Road, St. Joseph, Michigan, St. Joe Township. Been practicing for 27 years, representing Ms. Gully today.
Okay. So Ms. Gully, you have an opportunity to respond to the letter dated August 21st. So I assume it's for open session?
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we'd like to take some difference with some of the statements that were allegations that are made against Ms. Gully. I'd like to start by kind of pointing out that you have these policies of Board of Education norms that will treat each other with respect. We will listen to learn. We will refrain from side conversations. We'll use our time wisely, starting and ending our meetings on time. We'll challenge ideas, not people. We will ask questions when in doubt. There will be no surprises at the board table. I think that Ms. Gully has suffered some frustration by violations of this policy by other board members themselves and the staff, or the superintendent, that I think it's a two-way street when you're talking about respect and quiet. And specifically, you had claimed that she had not signed board resolutions and I guess board resolutions that she didn't agree with specifically. I note that she had resigned her position as board secretary some time ago, several weeks ago, I believe. So that shouldn't continue to be an issue on those. One of the things when I read over the board member misconducts, I see things like my client saying to, I guess, Dr. Walker, who you're looking at, don't be looking at me, don't stare at me. And then later we see that my client's been accused of making rolling eyes, staring at people, etc. So if somebody's staring at her, she's not allowed to comment about it. But if she stares at somebody else, then that's a specific charge. I don't think that stares and rolling eyeballs and rolling your eyes, nonverbal statements like that can really be taken as a avenue of misconduct. One of the specific things that she had complained about, and I might be wrong about the dates and such, but some materials that were provided by Mr. Bryant, who I believe was the former principal at Hull School, and he had provided a very lengthy set of materials to the board. And Lisa said that she got these materials on the day of the meeting and was trying to look through them while conversations were going on around her. We think that getting something this deep that needed some time to digest would be in the category of a surprise by giving it to her at the meeting. And so her claim was that she was trying to go through this, and it was fairly detailed and lengthy that Mr. Bryan had written, and it was basically a response to his termination as principal. And there were several allegations in there about various teachers and about the superintendent herself, that she had aligned with these teachers, and that he had made some accusations that he believed that certain teachers were filing school suspensions in an attempt ineligible at other schools. So whether these accusations are true or false, they were quite significant, and Ms. Gully was feeling frustrated by not having the time to actually look that over and be able to respond rationally to the board's decision on terminating Mr. Bryant. She said that in another category of surprise, that Ms. Walker Dr. Walker was showing people at the same time she was trying to review this, some statements that Mr. Bryant had made on Facebook.
It was a text from Louise Reggie saying that he violated FERPA. She had a text message on her phone.
A reporter had sent a text message to Ms. Walker, and that she was then circulating that around the meeting, the information that I guess Mr. Bryant had done something else improper, in her opinion. But at any event, she was not really allowed the time to digest this material. It was put her on surprise. Another accusation is, and this turned out to be false, that President Joseph Taylor had contacted the Troon law firm, Mr. Gardner there, and then he had then filed an email to Ms. Gully saying that he was informed that you had taken closed session meetings out of the school property, which would be a crime. And she was threatened with that and cited the law about it, saying that it would be a misdemeanor and a fine, or a fine, and that if she didn't do this immediately, she'd be reported to law enforcement authorities. Well, it turns out that she had not taken closed session meetings out of the building, and so that was not a proper charge to her. And that fact is that anybody getting a accusation that you're going to be charged criminally for something would make the average person a little bit upset. And so if she acted or said anything, it was in relation to being basically attacked with false criminal charges. So the board should be careful before they level a charge like this on somebody when it turns out not to be true. Ms. You also comment that she's violated policy by doing something on social media. I'm going to assume that's Facebook. Mm-hmm. And that she said, question some of the actions of the board on things, and that you're saying that that's a violation of her duties on a board member's code of conduct. that support, that once a board's vote has been taken, support board decisions regardless of how the individuals voted. I could question that. I mean, if it's really a bad decision, then I don't think anybody should set aside their valid concerns and go ahead and just rubber stamp a board's decision if it's improper. So I'd ask that you probably look at that one a little closer, saying that we're going to have agreement at all costs. Well, the cost could be significant if you're doing something wrong and one of your board members knows that it's not right. I think that her communications with on social media in that regard are protected by the First Amendment. It's her opportunity to communicate with her constituents, which are the parents and the voters of Benton Harbor area schools. She expressed to me frustration that while she's trying to review these materials that were given to her at the last minute, which are somewhat, there's a lot in here with Mr. Bryant's report that would lead the board to do further inquiry, I think, on how certain students were treated, and this idea that that he was terminated because he had some negative art displayed outside of his office. I believe that there was probably parents and community members that thought highly of Mr. Bryant, and he took the time to write this and to give it all to your board members. And I think it was improper to kind of shove it under, could have been a tactic to give it to you at the last minute, which is a violation of the surprise aspect, and then to not let people talk about it or to challenge that. So I think that she's resigned as the board secretary, so I think that eliminates some of your concerns about her not signing certain resolutions that she disagreed with. And as to the board, specific board member misconducts, she's supposedly saying to Dr. Walker that don't be looking at me, don't be staring at me. So I assume that she believed that she was being stared at. So if Dr. Walker stares at Lisa, that's okay, but if Lisa says something, that's wrong. But if Lisa stares at Dr. Walker, then that's a violation in and of itself, without even words being said. So I don't think that this resolution has enough gist to warrant a censure of Ms. Gully, and I would ask that the board consider this as this goes two ways. It's a two-way street. I hear Ms. Momini asking quite a few questions in the board meeting here, and I think that's her right. And I think that's Ms. Gully's right to ask questions as well, even if it doesn't conform to your overall consensus building desire. That she has a right to her opinion. She is an elected official of this school district and should be treated with respect as well. I have counseled her to try to cool her temper. I think things get frustrating for people, especially when you're accused of a criminal charge. But I think any misspeaks that she made there, and we're in relation to her frustration that she was suffering by the board itself violating policies by giving a surprise. So we're open for questions.
Any questions from the board? Comments? I would say we have to be clear. So Board President Taylor and myself, I was contacted by Trune. I did not contact Trune, right? So that's a misnomer. I was contacted because I was informed that closed session minutes had been taken. And as you know, attorney, closed session minutes are a violation of the Open Meetings Act. And if you look through our consent agreement, you would find that a violation of the Open Meetings Act is a violation of the consent agreement, right? Which would null and void our contract. So, but she did take special meeting minutes as well. So she did not take the closed session minutes. She was given an apology through Trune Law Firm. Whether she accepts that apology or not, she was offered and afforded an apology. And as far as taking minutes from the board, you can't do that. Because just like you, sir, you're a citizen, and a citizen has to FOIA minutes in order to get them. So that's my spill on this. Do you have any questions, comments for me?
She disagrees with who initiated this. Mr. Gardner's email says that he was recently informed that you removed closed session board meeting minutes from school property. Board President Taylor requested you return the closed session board meeting minutes to the superintendent's office yesterday. So I don't know who was the source of this to the
Right,
true
so
law
I did not initiate it. But when the call was given to me, my job as the board president or the chair is to make sure that Trustee Gully receives that information. Trustee Gully sent an email prior to myself and Tim Gardner from Truman Law Firm stating that she didn't want any contact. Her only contact for communication would be in writing. So I couldn't pick up a phone to say, Trustee Gully, did you take those closed session minutes? That would have been really easy, wouldn't it, right? To say that. And once she didn't respond the first day, since we were facing, supposedly, because it was assumed it was closed session, since we were facing a possible open meetings violation, then I had to state the law to her. As far as if you don't do this, but that law is on the State of Michigan website. That law doesn't come from Board President Taylor.
But admittedly, she was not in violation of taking home closed session meetings.
No, she wasn't, and she was afforded an apology to Truman, but she was in violation of taking special session open meetings home.
And she returned those correctly, correct?
She returned those after the emails went out, correct?
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
The seats?
Yes, thank you. Some of the information concerning, I guess, the former principal that was at home, I didn't know anything about some comments or cartoons, or what did you state, sir?
I came into this case just as a lawyer, so I'm not familiar with all the facts.
I'm just asking a question because was that a document?
I believe that he had some,
session?
My
question is to you, is that document you're reading to us? Because I'm trying to find that document. Was that a document that we had in a closed session? Or was that information that was sent to us via email that was afforded to everybody? I don't know, because I'm trying to find that document.
Well,
was that in our closed session?
I know one document from Miller Associates.
But
was brought in.
I'm
I don't know what
to the document the gentleman is reading right now.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe what you're looking at is a document, is it not, from the principal?
Yes, it is. It's Mr. Bryant's response to his termination.
We all did receive that. It was not in a closed session. It came in an email to all of us.
Ms. Gully says that she couldn't open that and was able then had to look at it for the first time at the meeting. And that caused her some frustration that she, first off, didn't get it ahead of time, couldn't open it, and then was given very little time to review it and read it. And it was, in my opinion, important materials, whether they were true or false or just accusations. I think things like that should be have been a grain of salt. The guy's being terminated, but you should at least listen to what he said and investigate things if they need to be investigated. So her claim was that she did not have it until the meeting and did not have time to review it adequately to be able to ask questions. And
I'm trying to figure out too, because I think some of that was in closed session.
I don't know. That's what I'm confused concerning, because I do remember that Ms. Gully asked for time because we had this situation once before with a former trustee that needed more time and was not given time and was, and then resigned immediately because of some other things that happened. But I'm just trying to process when this document, and she did ask for more time to read the document because she couldn't open it. I remember that. But was it open during that session? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Was she able to open it? Was she not able to open it? I don't remember. And so I'm just.
I would say it's not important, because the reason why it's not important is because the document from, not the superintendent, but from the principal is irrelevant. We're here today to talk about the accusations, and none of those accusations was even concerning that document that you brought today.
It's not about the document, it's about not giving Ms. Gully time to review the document that was provided to her. She supposedly could have opened it, but her email did not open for her. So she had to look at it at the meeting for the first time, and that's where some of the misconduct.
You're talking about the misconduct in closed session.
The misconduct that you're alleging on her with some statements that she was abrupt or sharp or snippy.
You're talking about the statements when she says, I wish the superintendent would shut the F up. That's what you're referring to.
I could be, I wasn't there at the meeting.
It's on the paperwork you have, sir.
She was trying to read the papers, and at the same time, Dr. Walker was speaking to other people next to her, and she was not able to give her attention to the document properly, and that was her frustration.
So would you say, sir, that even though we're frustrated, that as an elected official or as a professional, because you're a professional attorney, that you need to use certain language because you're frustrated? Or would you say that a professional should use tactful language even when they're frustrated?
They should try to be tactful if they're frustrated, if they can. But if you're frustrated enough and then you've been falsely charged of a criminal charge, and then you're being held to a standard where if you look at they look at you, that's no problem staring at you. But if you call them on, hey, don't stare at me, that's a violation of misconduct. Or if she actually stares at somebody themselves, then you can say that that's a violation. So you're not practicing a two-way street on that.
So I think that what we gave was a short timeline of improper conduct. We could have went back even to 2016. So this timeline was a short timeline, right? From several months back to today. And as far as when you state that a person was frustrated after being accused of something, right? Taking closed session minutes, that came after the closed session. That was not a part of the closed session. That had nothing to do with that. That was at a later date.
Here's one of the statements that you're using against her. How am I supposed to concentrate when you're talking? She screamed at supposedly Dr. Walker. That was your on June 1st allegation. So that's the same thing where she's trying to have some moment to look at something and being talked to at the same time. So she's attempting to maintain some order in her information flow. If people are talking around you, you can't give your 2 cents proper justice to some documents that have been provided to you, things that are important. So I'm just relaying what her frustration was, is that she wanted time to review this and needed somewhat quiet time and not people asking her questions and talking next to her. So she, I guess, said, please shut up.
Oh, no, she didn't say that, sir, because you have the paper in front of you.
Well, that's your allegation.
Well, it's an allegation, but that's what's in front of you, so it's not please shut up. We have to contend with what's on the paper, and we can't make things up.
Well, it means the same thing to me.
Oh, I mean, but that's not what's written.
Well, you've got it outlined out. You've got to shut the F blank blank K up. So you didn't write that out.
Well, we wanted to be professional. We didn't want to just write things out like that, because I could have said that on the microphone, but I don't want to be disrespectful to people watching. I want to try to use some sort of protocol. Dr. Walker, you were going to, I guess, help with that statement?
I was just going to review the timeline. So on that Tuesday, the administrator came to the meeting before the board and in public comment shared a perspective. The board gave that administrator until, thank you. Sorry. And I could use a teacher voice. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I was saying that, just to give the board the timeline to the seats question. So on that Tuesday, the administrator came up to public comments and addressed the board. Asked the board to give time. The board graciously gave till that Thursday for that administrator to submit their response. That response was placed in your weekly memo and sent out on that Thursday before the following board meeting on that Tuesday. At the same time, when we went into closed session by then, you had had a response from the district that was given to you in the closed session with the lawyer available to answer any questions that you have. But in that same time period, it had surfaced information in the principal's response had some confidential information, and that's where that conversation on one end of the room was being had. On the opposite end of the room, because I was asked, what do you mean? And so I was showing that, to another board. So that's, if that helps you all in your context of when, what, and how. You did get the information from the week before. I was not aware that it couldn't be opened by certain people. I did not know that. We certainly would have helped as usual, but it was provided in advance.
Any other, I forgot maybe the microphone. So, are there any other questions, comments from the attorney or the board? Tim, would you care to speak?
Yes. Okay, well, I don't know if there's anything. Briefly, just to tell you what your options are. Essentially, Ms. Scully is an elected board member, and essentially you can't remove her from office. You do, and she has already done this, already have a few options. You can adopt a board member code of conduct, which you've already done about 2 weeks ago. Number two, in this particular case, Board Member Gully was the secretary in the secretary officer position, and she submitted her letter of resignation from the board secretary position. I believe it was last week. That was, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I'm not absolutely sure of the exact date, but I saw it was on the board member's board agenda today. The third option that the board could use if they decided that they wanted to take action against a board member is the option of censure. And censure essentially has no legal effect, but what it does is essentially is an expression of the board's disapproval. It's a reprimand in a sense. But does that, essentially what you have before you can basically say, you're dissatisfied or disapprove of this type of conduct, and you're deciding to make it public. That's kind of the only options that are available when you're dealing with a situation where you want to take action against a board member. You provided her with due process that's required when you take this type of action, or you consider taking this kind of action. You should allow the board member the opportunity to respond. You have provided her with notice, and then she's had legal counsel representing her today to provide her with her position on why she disagrees with the allegations. And essentially what happens after that, since we're in open session, is now you have to decide whether you want to, since she's already resigned from the secretary position, you really have to decide whether you want to censure her, or really there's no other option other than that. You do have, I believe, a resolution already prepared, but you essentially have received the position of Board Member Gully. You have all of the facts laid out in front of you already, and really this has to be a decision that has to be made by a majority of the board. And, I think that Ms. Gully's attorney has already offered that essentially she's resigned from her secretary position and feels that there has been a miscommunication in some cases. You have already adopted a board member code of conduct. You have adopted board norms last year. So you have things in place which not only are about what's happening right now, but what if this happens with someone else, another board member 2-3 years from now? Really what you're asking yourself is, you set a precedent. I mean, essentially you have the facts laid out in front of you, and then the board has to decide how they're going to take action. They got everything in place. A board member code of conduct, you got the board norms, you got board policies, you got everything in place. You're presented with the alleged misconduct, and you have to decide, what are you gonna do? And so you have your options now. Really, it's only one option. It's either censure or taking no action in reality. So Ms. Gully's attorney has already proposed essentially taking no other action. I think the board is considering censure, but it has to be by a majority vote. And I think those are your options at this point. I don't know if you have any questions, but I certainly would be willing to answer those if you have any.
Any questions for Jim? Okay. Any other final words, Attorney?
Yes. I think you did eventually say what you, they have more than one option, not to just vote for censure, or they could not vote for censure. Right. I wanted to bring up another issue, another point here is, it goes with the social media. And I guess somebody else responds to her social media and says, well, just give the word and we'll make it go away, homie. And then your board here categorized that in response to this potential threat against board members, that you replied saying it's time. I don't see how somebody making a comment to a Facebook page or a Facebook post, just give the word and we'll make it all go away, homie, can be construed as a threat against the whole board. I don't see that, and I think that was improperly put in there as an issue of misconduct, because she, I suppose, didn't immediately say, well, what were you meaning about that, go away, homie? She didn't have a duty to question the person that filed a response to her Facebook post. She doesn't have to, it doesn't automatically then agree with whatever they say just because they post it in relation to her post. Here's a statement that you wrote down on her, that she didn't have any of the papers, and that was a false allegation, that I'm being bullied and harassed. That's been her position. That she's brought this to the public because of what is going on. This is the behavior of an elected official, all because she has a difference of opinion on some. Says, I'm not a consensus thinker. I think reasonably and on behalf of the people that elected her, the voters. So I think she has a right to do that. I think any bad language that she did was in relation to frustration that she was feeling by not being treated with respect and being given these surprises. I don't think this case warrants any kind of censure, and I'd ask the board to vote for no censure.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. So before us, a resolution. I'm trying to figure out, so Tim, on the resolution, I think I don't need to read the whereas.
Yes.
Now therefore be resolved, and then we vote on it.
You can decide someone to make a motion to vote to approve the resolution or.
All right, so I'll read the resolution. Whereas the board has heard complaints filed against board member Lisa Gully, whereas the board has considered the complaints and given Ms. Gully an opportunity to respond, whereas the board has considered all information provided by Ms. Gully and complaints made against Ms. Gully. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby finds that Ms. Gully has used abusive and inappropriate language in her capacity as a board member, violating the Board of Education norms, taken private action by using her social media accounts to disparage board members by calling them rats, and has undermined the credibility of the board in violation of the board policy 0144.2, and used threatening language towards the superintendent, violating the board member code of conduct. The board finds this behavior inappropriate and unbecoming of a board member and hereby censures Ms. Gully. The board urges Ms. Gully to realign her behavior so that in the future it is becoming of a board member. The board finds that this resolution is in the district's best interest. All resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded. May I have a motion for the approval of resolution number 3, censor only? May I have a motion? Moved by trustee Bartolomini. May I have a second? Supported by Angelica McGowan. Any other questions, comments, concerns before we call the vote? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, comment. Again, I asked a question about timelines because again, I know we're not privy to disclose what happened in a closed session in this open meeting. And so, and not only that one, but the one where a former person resigned and was not allowed to do, I know I was appointed, not elected to serve. I like to work in an unhostile environment. And the personal feelings towards individuals, I don't have to like a person, but I have to respect them. And just some things I've been disheartened at since I've been serving in this capacity. And if this is, if this is what the public wants, this is what the district wants, because this is not what I come here to do, is to work where feel like I'm intimidated, where if I say something or if I ask a person a question, it becomes extremely, personal, and that's just not my nature. And so I'm very uncomfortable with the resolution. We had talked, we with Ms. Gully, we went into a session. I asked, was there anything I could do to make Ms. Gully feel more comfortable on this board? I went the extent, and I really would like, I don't know. I'm so serious that a lot of things can be avoided. I think some things have been escalated. Yes. And if he apologized, and if they apologize, I want to say to Ms. Gully, did you accept the apology for a misunderstanding of not taking a closed session, whatever called? Did you accept that apology? Ms. Gully, trustee Gully, did you accept it? And can we move forward as a board together so that the past can be the past? That's what I want to know, from you, trustee.
Do I accept Troon Law Firm's apology?
However, the miscommunication, yes, ma'am. And can we, as a board, because I think everybody has to respect everybody. And there might have been some disrespect that has happened from board members to staff, from staff to whatever. But I'm asking you, Ms. Gully, do you accept the apology? And can we, as a board, leave this behind and move on as a unit?
Well, after looking at the test scores and what we have to face for our student achievement, my kids, I'm the only board member with kids in this district, and their futures are at stake. Yes. And I'm not going to waste my time on any other trivial things. Things have been going well for me. But suddenly it was a shift, it was a turn. And I can ignore the fact of the noise and everything and do what's best for my community, because I've been the highest vote getter for 2 elections, and I have to represent my community well, and those are my constituents, those are my bosses, and I respect them. And I'm not going to allow people to come in here and just do whatever. So yes, I can accept that apology, because I, for one, am a leader of this community. And yes, nobody is perfect. And like you said, it's been a lot of things that's going on that hasn't, amongst all board members, that's really not having, it's a disapproval rate. But, you know, I'll take that, I'll take it, and I'll accept the apology and move forward.
Any other questions, comments? Ms. McDonald, call the roll.
Marletta Six,
No.
Joseph Taylor,
Yes.
Martha Molly,
Yes.
Angelique McGowan, yes. Margie Guest,
No.
Lisa Gold,
No,
So motion or the resolution fails. We can't clap. You see? I mean, we're told to be respectful, so we want to be respectful.
I'm her mother. I haven't had a chance to say anything.
Well,
I'm her mother.
I understand that, but,
Can I just say this?
no, ma'am, because that time of the meeting is over.
All right. Well, I was here for my daughter, but I know the things that you said.
So Mrs. Mommy, collaboration, of the partnership agreement,
Okay, and we're heading into some deadlines. So there's a couple things that we need to do. Number one, I passed out last week, and I don't think you were here. And that the recommendations that were made by basically the state, the people at the state level, the MDE, Treasury, and everybody. And now we need to change our professional development plan. On evaluating our strengths and weaknesses, they concluded it was an honest assessment, and the recommendations were none. But under our SMART goals, we have to make some decisions, and this has to go in by September 21st. So we've got to come up with decisions tonight and vote on it by next week, or we will have to have a special meeting. Looking for suggestions. SMART goals, section 2, it says consider either a monthly or quarterly decision on your progress on each of your 3 dimensions, so you can adjust strategies as needed. Is the consensus of the board to do that monthly, or would it be quarterly?
so I have a question, so we asked for extensions, so.
That includes the extension.
Well, hold on, so you're saying that this has to be in by September 21st with our extension?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. We make a decision, do we want to go over our progress monthly or quarterly? My suggestion would be quarterly, considering how many meetings we have, and we are discussing this basically at every meeting. But if you feel it's important that we do monthly, we can come to a consensus that we would do it monthly.
So how does the board feel? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? I know we meet every month anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it may take more than just a few minutes to talk about our progress on each of the dimensions. That's why I would suggest quarterly, but.
That's a long time though. I mean, if you do it monthly, then you still get time to go over. You don't have to spend a lot of time. It's just. Yes, ma'am.
My question was time too.
Yeah.
Okay, how long would you anticipate that it would take for the total discussion? And is it necessary during the monthly to talk about every item?
No.
Or can we break it down so that we expedite some of the
in fact,
information?
Once we get past November, it will be much easier, because the things that has specific dates have to be finished by November. Our hardest work is right now. And I don't know, we can do it monthly, and if you feel like we can have a discussion and adjust the strategies as needed. Now, just a thought, we could say we're gonna do it quarterly, but if we do it more, we're not gonna get in trouble. If we say we're gonna do it monthly and something happens and we don't do it, then that could be a factor too. It's up to you guys. I'll go with either one.
Everyone else, we got 2 people quarterly, 3 people? Okay, so
Okay.
quarterly it is.
So we'll do that change on that, okay. And then, the board will reevaluate its performance in June of 2018 and identify areas of focus for the next 12 months. They're recommending that we collect evidence of progress individually and collectively so that the school board can use this evidence for the June 18th discussion. Celebrate accomplishments and reevaluate the plan for growing as a team for the subsequent year. We can agree to do that, but we may need to have conversations on what kind of evidence do we want to collect to show that we are accomplishing what we have said we would.
What is different, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
What is different in what you're collecting here and then the scorecard? What?
Because this is personally about us.
About us?
About us, and are we reaching our goals?
And we have those set goals.
Yeah, you want me to remind you of what our goals are? Okay. I'll be glad to, if you'd like me to. Okay. So, and one of the things about the goals is it needs to be measurable, so what are we gonna use to measure these? What we could do is, and it's in here, I think somewhere, where we usually do a self-assessment once a year. We could do a quick self-assessment quarterly, twice a year, or whatever. And then that will show us where we're going and how we're going towards it.
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask a question about self-assessment?
Yes.
Because there's a writer that said every man is right in his own eyes. So when you self-assess, I mean, I might think one thing, but is it self-assessment where I assess you, we back and forth assessment, I assess you back and forth? Because if I assess me, I'm a team. And I'm really maybe a 2. So I'm trying to get clarity on that.
Okay, well, we used, the last time we did it, we used the MASB board self-assessment. And basically all these assessments and evaluations now are done on a consensus. So he can do a 10 and he can do a 5 and I can do maybe a 7 and we'll average it out.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine.
So, so we want to do those self-assessments twice a year and use that as part of our evidence.
I do.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I mean, we want to fulfill our obligations, but we also don't want to add burdens that aren't necessary. Okay, and then strategies and trainings, this is a big one here. We need to prioritize the training needs in order of preference. So the organizations who support your training can plan accordingly. And included in this is also comments about the MASB training. It was underwritten by the Treasury, which is no longer the case. Therefore, Dr. Teasley, who is our partnership district liaison, will coordinate a meeting with me and determine how to address our immediate needs. And they're going to try and provide us resources. But in order for us to sit down with her and say, this is what we're looking for, we need to prioritize what training do we want first and how often are we going to do training. Now, that's where the goals come in. One of them is that, where'd it go? Our next self-assessment will show no unsatisfactory rating in any dimension. Okay. And then each of the 3 dimensions will be the primary focus for the next 12 months. And what we are focusing on is leadership, board superintendent relationships, and community engagement and advocacy. And goal number 3 is reevaluate in 2018, but we're also going to reevaluate halfway through. So do we want to, our 3 focuses are leadership, board superintendent relations, and community engagement. Which one do we want to focus on first, which one's second, and which one third?
Please repeat.
Okay, sure thing. I lost it here. Okay, leadership, board superintendent relationships, and community engagement and advocacy.
Community engagement.
Okay.
Like that.
Number one for me.
Yeah, okay, so we'll put that in as number one.
And
Does anyone who disagrees or has? I really think community engagement is a good.
Community determines our leadership, so
Okay,
that's why
and so then what's going to be number two? Is it going to be leadership or superintendent board relations? Superintendent? Is everybody okay with that? Just like in a wedding, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, and then our third one will be leadership of the board. Okay. I believe that takes care of all the recommendations. We'll have to, and I'll probably have to work with Ms. West to come up with a resolution saying that this is what we've accepted and how we want to change it. Because everything has to be sent to Dr. Teasley. And we could vote on that agreement Tuesday, I believe, right? Is that okay with everybody? Come to a conclusion on that? Okay, and then there was one more. Well, kind of a group thing. We had to, one of the things we had to do was the superintendent's evaluation, and we had to have a process for it. And it was suggested that the process was in the contract. Well, the only thing that's in the contract, and this one caught me off guard because it used to be later in the year, is we have to do an evaluation prior to March 15th. Which to me, you haven't finished the school year yet, but that's what it says in the contract. But we need to clarify and put into writing what our process is. Now, some of it's controlled by law, but do we want to put, process is gonna be, it's gonna be a consensus. It'll be open unless requested by the superintendent to be closed. In the consensus, we'll take the scores and we'll average them.
Can we do it just like we did with MASB?
Okay, all right, so I'll try to put all those things in there for the proposal next week, that this is gonna be our process, exactly how we did with MASB. Now, they provided a facilitator last year. Are we comfortable with doing it ourselves? I mean, that's part of our growth, is to be able to do this on our own.
Oh.
Or do we want to,
They facilitated across the state though.
yeah, well, and maybe Dr. Teasley would facilitate it, because she's gonna be, so we wanna, so we're not caught in a bind, I'm trying to think ahead. If possible, we'll include a facilitator if one is available. Would that be okay? All right. Okay.
And March 15th is the day, the date.
Prior to March 15th is what it
I
says.
prefer it to be prior to.
Yeah.
So you know before a school year closes.
Closes, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, not
Yeah.
waiting until the school year ends, yeah.
Okay, and then it's the evaluation ones are the ones that, and we have to have, we use the MASB self-evaluation, but we will also vote on that Tuesday, that we will use the MASB evaluation, and we're gonna do it twice a year and everything, and what our procedure is in that, so that will take care of one more goal in this. And there was one more section here. One more evaluation we were supposed to do. Superintendent, board evaluation. Okay, oh, no, that third one is 180 days we got to do, so. And that's procedural documents and stuff that we're working on now. Okay, I think that's it, and what we need to do on evaluations. We are coming up, here's the other one. Submit to the signatories revised sets of policies. That's due the 21st. We have done the revisions My concern is what we have in our memo is not the final copies of the policies. Are those on the website? And have they been corrected on the website so we can submit that to the state?
So I'll need to verify, there's a process that Neola has. When the board approves policies, there's some forms we submit. I'm pretty sure that's happened, but I have not followed it, so I'll verify that. Once we submit those, the policies are updated online. So it's a question of, did that next piece happen? Once you have approved everything, has Neola gotten the evidence of your approval submitted? So I'll have to ask that question and verify and let you all know in a minute.
Okay, well, and if we get desperate, then we'll have to submit the ones that are handwritten and all the notes on them, because we have to turn that in by the 21st. And then within 10 days after that, they have to tell us if there's any other revisions they want us to make on that. So we'll need to submit something, but I would prefer if we can, to get the ones that are finalized that we voted on. And of course, then we'll also submit the staff report where we voted on those. So that should, then we're good until November. We need to shoot for November. I gave you a list, and don't worry, Ms. Seats, I'll get you a list too. Everybody was given a protocol to go over that we need to determine if it follows board policy. If it does, what policy does it follow? If it conflicts with board policy, we need to note what it conflicts with so we can make a decision on whether we need to change the procedural and protocol document or whether we need to change the policy. But we have until like November to do that.
Ms. Gaddis and Lisa.
That's my answer.
Yeah, and she asked me earlier, and I know Mr. Mitchell asked me, and I couldn't remember for sure when it was. So,
One second, Mark. Ms.
oh, sorry.
Kelly.
You didn't get a list on the pro, okay.
No, I got a list of what I was handling complaints, and that's what I got. And you said, follow this protocol, but the document you sent me, I told you that I couldn't open it. You said that you was gonna take a look at it.
Okay, if you want to, so yeah, you're doing, okay, handling the complaints. If you want a hard copy of it, Ms. West will get you a hard copy. You can't get into that end of the memo.
What yours was. what you
Okay.
sent. I didn't,
Yeah, I know that one, but you should be able to get into the handling of complaints at the end of our memo that we just got this last week. It's at the very end, they're all listed. If not, she'll be happy to run a copy for you. Okay, so anybody has problems, and we'll let you have yours too. So that would be the next thing. Okay, let me know the checks. So, okay, we'll present at the meeting also next week what our professional development plan is. Okay, and pass the resolution to implement it. So I'm going to be spending time with her.
I'm looking at my name beside board norms. How did I get assigned to that, may I ask?
I just kind of went random. I took code of conduct because it was the longest one, and I knew I could talk Mrs. McGowan into helping me. I think the one like for Mr. Mitchell, school closing, he's done that before in his previous life, so that kind of ties in with him. So I tried to, if I thought there was an area that you might have more expertise or background in, I gave it to you. Otherwise, I just gave you something.
Okay, I just didn't know how I was assigned.
No. And I took the longest one. So, okay. So we'll do, so there'll be, 4 or 5 things next week we need to vote on so that we can get this stuff into the state and stay on our timelines. And once we get, like I said, when we get past November, a lot of it is just ongoing that we just have to do on a regular basis and doesn't have a specific timeline. Okay, you guys got any questions? I hope I didn't forget anything.
good job, Rachel.
Thank you.
All right. So on that note, though, the superintendent sent out an email stating that if you want to sign up for the November MASB workshop, do so now so we can get the discount. If not, you can still sign up. It's just that we don't get the discount. So you can still sign up to, yeah,
8 is the discount.
yes.
Do I need to sign up via, or
Via
can I
Ms.
just
West.
sign up?
Sign up through Susan.
Susan, I'll do that.
And I noticed the 2 main hotels they use are both full. So I don't know if they found a new place to put you in. The place where we stayed one time, which was a ways out, it was full. And the one that's connected to the Lansing Center is full too, so.
I don't like the Lansing Center anyway.
Well, so see, she doesn't care if it's
Well,
full.
you can find any hotel.
Yeah, so, but what they do is they usually talk to the hotels and they get a discount from people coming to the convention. And I don't know if they found an additional one yet.
And so sign up for that. Hopefully we can get the discount. If not, you can still sign up. Dr. Walker, closing comments?
Thank you. So, microphone, would you please?
Yeah, we got one.
So just wanted to point out the first day of school was off to a very positive start. We did try to counter some of the challenges we had faced last year, particularly around arrival of students not registered. And so we put some processes in place to have evidence they were successful. So I'll share more. And I tried to, like I said, provide you the enrollment information. We'll keep that up to date. The teachers are excited. The environments were positive. Mrs. Robinson and I went to every school. The only glitch that I heard kind of consistently were problems with busing. So when we got back to the district office and we reached out to the bus company, what we learned was the person they had doing the dispatching work, they fired him. So it wasn't just Benton Harbor. So there's no consolation in that, obviously, because we don't want anybody to have trouble. But the point is that whoever they had out of another area with this company, he messed up quite a few districts, bus routes and things. We weren't the only ones. So you may hear some grumblings and frustrations there. And so hopefully we'll gather all that input and respond for next year. But overall, a great start to the year, a lot of positive energy, a lot of excited kids and staff, and everything we saw was real positive. So thank you.
Thank you. Comments from board members, starting with Ms. Gass.
It's been a long and productive evening.
Yes, it has. Mrs. Huntley.
Okay. Going on, first off, we were told at a recent meeting when we had, Mrs. McGowan and I had questions about the teacher's contract and the pay and everything, we were told that the teacher's contract was online. I cannot find it online. So if someone's gonna help me find it, because we're trying to understand what was done. But I did find, while I was looking for the teacher's contract, a guide for chaperones that are serving on field trips. And I hope that everybody that chaperones on a field trip this year receives those guidelines and maybe even have them sign for it so they know what our expectations are for chaperones on a field trip. The mental health first aid that was training this last week, I got to commend the people that organized and everything. It was well organized. It was, I mean, even though our presenter didn't tell us to use oils on the hand and stuff, she was very, very good. The Jeopardy game did get a little wild. I was just, do not enter a Jeopardy game with Miss Nelson. Because she's out here, Carrie Nelson.
Yeah, we didn't play one.
Oh, yes, gal, yeah, we sure she's gonna get hired for all these little sticky notes she did on her Jeopardy, right? But it went well, and when I first walked into the room, it was very quiet, nobody was talking. And then as it got going, everybody jumped in. In fact, I happened to meet a very nice lady there by the name of Patricia Taylor.
My sister.
Your sister, yeah, and she was one of the first ones to kind of speak up and get it going. And she works for food service, but she was very involved with it. So you didn't, after a while, you didn't know who was food service and who was a teacher and who was a bus driver. And I thought it went really, really well. Okay, Stump School. A former teacher and a friend of mine has a nephew that works out at Stump with the Bogan Center. And she said, she went on a tour. They do tours every Friday. And she said, even though she's not teaching anymore, picked up some ideas and activities and strategies that they were using out there that she thought might be of interest to our special ed or even our regular teachers. But the more important thing was she walked in and there's this hole in the wall. And she said to her nephew, "What is the hole in the wall?" And he said, "Well, that's where the stump plaque used to be." And he said, "It was removed before we got the building." And he said they were disappointed because they wanted to honor the history of the building. So I'm wondering if we know where the plaque is at, can it be returned, maybe with a contract saying it comes back to us at some point, so that they can honor the history of that building? Anybody know where it's at?
I haven't heard stuff, so,
No, okay. It's just that they were really interested in honoring the history.
I'm open for it, but I'll be honest.
Don't know where it's
I
at.
have 3 or 4 things on my list of things that if God so decides us to fall and trip over it, we might find it.
Okay, all right, God, did you hear that? He wants to trip over it.
But, as far as anything beyond
So,
that.
okay,
it's kind of
yes.
where we're at.
You could have gotten scrapped, you know, I'm sorry, but because I think it was neat that they were disappointed, they wanted to kind of honor the history. And then I was kind of heartbroken, Sunday, when I went to buy groceries, and I run into one of our teachers who's in there working her 3rd job. And if we have teachers that need to work 3 jobs, it's affecting how they're helping our children. So I pray that we figure out ways to give our teachers more support, more money, and more opportunity to do well for our kids, because I feel badly that we have teachers that are working 2 and 3 jobs.
Thank you. Ms. McConnell? Ms. Seeds?
Yes, thank you. It has been a long evening. I wanted to say to President Taylor, I want to thank you for how you conducted yourself this evening, and because of how everything evolved, that you took the brunt, and you were the bad guy. And so I think you handled yourself in a very professional manner. And I wanted to let you know that I do support you. And the reason that, and I usually don't do this, say I didn't support, but when someone apologizes, I give people the benefit of the doubt, at least. But I do support how you conducted yourself, and being accused or misunderstood of how it was handled. So I thank you so much for how your demeanor was this evening in a hard place, and you're to be commended. So I just wanted you to know I do support you, but again, I have to give people, when somebody openly says, and I have to accept it, that's my letter, has to accept it. But for you, I do appreciate how you handled yourself tonight, President Taylor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and duly noted. I think, when we talk about code of conduct, we want to make sure we all follow it. So, we have to lead by example. And this was productive, and that's the hope of the whole board, right? So we're all on the same page. We all feel engaged, right, to do the right thing, because at the end of the day, it's about what's in the best interest of our students. And with that being said, the other business is expulsion. So tonight you guys had a piece of paper, and hopefully you signed up for that, on that piece of paper before you go. So this is going to be the times you're available for expulsion. We want to do that right now since school started. And you can give that to Susan before you leave. Yep, you can leave it right on the table.
Okay.
All right?
Are we gonna get any training on the new laws that deal with expulsion?
So I meant to put that in the memo and I forgot, and I apologize, because I had talked with Ms. about it.
Yes.
Dan Martin from Trim will continue to do the hearing officer. He knows the law, so your role is to just hear what he recommends and vote. So I think just saving money and time, I don't think you all need to have specific trainings, but I recommend to the board, if you remember how we ended the year, that same gentleman will conduct the hearings with you, and he'll know the laws to support his recommendations.
I would request then that, say, if Barbie and I are doing an expulsion and something comes up and he explains to us this situation is part of the new law, that we pass that on to everybody so that we have an understanding before we go in. And
the law.
That's no fun. You like doing that, not me.
I would like to see that the new board member, that we do get a protocol, that how it is like, in like a word chart type thing, and that she is given that to see how expulsion does happen, what happens, how we're notified, and things like that. Just something small So that again, and the reason that I did ask that is because I think everybody should be afforded the opportunity because of the new law to minimize expulsions and whys. So if we could get our new board member that protocol, she can understand what that looks like.
And just one other comment. I do hope that, and I understand that there are constraints because of school days, et cetera, but I think it's important that to the best of our ability, we work this out so that all board members, at least once, do attend and be a part of an expulsion because it shouldn't happen.
Okay. Duly noted. So with that, be it resolved that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education meeting be adjourned. May I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Seeds,
Second.
supported by Ms. Gass. Ms. McGowan?
Joseph Taylor.
Yes.
Angela McGowan, yes. Martha Harmony.
Yes.
Marletta Seats.
Yes.
And Marty, yes.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned at 9:18.